Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let's get started. Welcome to the 7th workshop of the Arkansas COVID-19 Recovery and Resiliency webinar series. Andrea Allen, who's the executive director here at the Delta Center, she couldn't be with us here today. My name is Margaret Jackson, and I am the program director for the University Center program here that we have at the Delta Center. And we're so glad that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We have an excellent lineup of speakers, and I know that you're going to enjoy it. The focus of our workshop today is resources for business. We all know that from our jobs to our homes to our groceries, we've all had a tremendous, all those things have been disrupted by COVID-19. And in many respects, it's still disruptive. Small businesses were some of our hardest hit sectors amid the pandemic, and losses to business activity have been felt nearly across all industries. Today, we're going to explore state and federal resources and services that are available to businesses, many of which are quite new. And we will also share with you some practical training about how to find and compete for government contracts and have an inspirational talk about entrepreneurship and innovation. But before we get into all of that, let's go over a few housekeeping items. If you've been on our previous workshops, you know that we're keeping the Zoom link on all day, and you can join and leave and rejoin as needed. Your microphones will be on mute, but feel free to type any questions that you have in the chat box, and we'll address those after the presentations. Also, for the best quality viewing of the workshop, please set your Zoom view to standard view. Our morning sessions will end today around 11:45, and we'll restart right at 2 with a presentation from the Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions team. And we'll end today at 3:30. I also wanted to let you know that all of our sessions are being recorded. So if you've missed any of our previous trainings, you'll be able to see them as many times as you like. We'll post these recordings on the Delta Center's website and on the Arkansas COVID-19 Recovery and Resiliency Initiative program site. We do have to add closed captioning and do some editing. So it may take a few weeks to get everything processed and loaded. So just be patient. We'll let you know when those recordings become available. But now, without further ado, let me introduce the two Jeffs, Jeff Standridge and Jeff Amerine. I've heard them referred to as the two Jeffs by lots of people, so I took the opportunity to do that as well. Jeff Amerine is one of the key leaders nationally involved with the creation of lasting venture ecosystems. Jeff has held senior leadership positions in 9 startups and 3 Fortune 500 companies, and he's made more than 80 plus angel investments into new ventures and small businesses, either directly or through the funds he manages. Jeff now leads Startup Junkie Consulting and Cadron Capital Partners. Jeff served as Associate Vice Provost, Research and Economic Development and Director of Technology Ventures at the University of Arkansas, and until leaving to pursue Startup Junkies consulting full time. His work at the university canvassed every aspect of the commercialization of life science, biotech, medical devices, healthcare information technology, pharma, and other areas of scientific and technical innovation. He's a recognized expert in lean startup methodology and customer development processes. In addition, Jeff is an adjunct professor and teaches entrepreneurship at the Sam M. Walton College of Business at the University of Arkansas. But prior to all of this, he served 6 years as a United States Air Force officer working in Strategic Air Command as a missile launch officer, and later in research and development acquisition. He graduated from the United States Naval Academy in 1994 and holds a Master of Science in Operation Management from the University of Arkansas. And he's also a Project Management Institute project management professional. And here's some information about Jeff Standridge. Dr. Jeff Standridge helps organizations and their leaders generate sustained results in the areas of innovation, strategy, profit growth, organizational effectiveness, and leadership. Formerly a vice president for Axiom Corporation, he's led established and startup businesses in North and South America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Jeff serves as managing director for the Conductor, co-founder of Cadron Capital Partners, and teaches entrepreneurial finance and innovation leadership at the College of Business at the University of Central Arkansas. He's been an invited speaker, trainer, and consultant for numerous companies, institutions and organizations across 5 continents. He's also a 2-time bestseller of The Innovators Field Guide, Accelerators for Entrepreneurs, Innovators, and Change Agents, and the Top Performers Field Guide, Catalyst for Leaders, Innovators, and all who aspire to be. Prior to his business career, he spent more than a decade in healthcare, serving as an assistant professor at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, and is a member of the Angel Flight Helicopter Transport Team at Arkansas Children's Hospital. He's also retired from the U.S. Army and the U.S. Army National Guard. He holds a doctorate of education with special work in leadership and organization development, as well as a Master of Education with special work in human and resource development. All that being said, we've got 2 fantastic speakers for you now, and we're glad that you're here, and thank you. Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, I think we're ready to go. I mean, I'm prepared to share my screen and we'll get going. And that was a very nice introduction, Mary Margaret. I've certainly appreciate all that, and we're ready to get going. As soon as we can share our screen here, I think we'll be good to go.
That's great. Let's go.
All right, let me hold on just one second. I will pull up the presentation here. Bear with me. Always kind of have to move things around a little bit. There we go. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
We can see
Perfect.
it. It's just advanced through to several
Oh, it sure
slides.
has. Okay, hold on. Forgive me. We'll fix that real quick. Pardon me, I'm not sure why that was the case. Okay, well, here we are. We're glad to be talking to all of you this morning. We certainly appreciate all that that this organization does to advance the state of knowledge, particularly going forward into the recovery from COVID-19. When Mary Margaret reached out to us originally to speak as part of this program, we were certainly delighted to do so. What we're going to talk to you about today is this idea of that's embodied in a book we wrote called Creating Startup Junkies. But the point is creating these sustainable venture ecosystems in really unexpected places. And it'd be hard to argue that Arkansas is not one of those places. And yet the past 13 years plus has shown that with a coalition of the willing and the right ingredients, you can really build a sustainable small business and startup scene. It's possible here. So what do we do and how do we go about doing that? Our overall mission and purpose is to empower and inspire innovators and entrepreneurs and makers. This is the reason we wake up every morning and the reason we get excited about what we do, because it's so important to the economy. Well, why do we do it? It turns out that the Kauffman Foundation has estimated, based on their research, that something like 85% of all net new job creation comes from startup companies. Other assessments from Small Business Administration have said it's at least 2 out of every 3. So it's clear that focusing on startups and small business is really an important thing to do for the economy, for economic empowerment and economic enablement. And the other thing that's critically important, and it's kind of an eye-opener really when we originally pulled these statistics, is that small businesses represent 99% of all employers and about half of all employees in the US. In addition, about 43% of all high-tech jobs come from small business and startups. And on a per capita basis, 13 times more patents per employee come from small business and startups. So we're just making the case here that this is really a critical aspect of the economy. And given all that, it's very difficult to launch a company and to have it be successful and to get it through that 1 year and 5 year survival rate. And why is that? And it's because a lot of times startup founders in small business will build a product or service that nobody really wants. They don't have what we call product market fit oftentimes. And so if you can do things as part of a startup ecosystem, an entrepreneurial support organization like Startup Junkie and the Conductor, to help improve that 1-year survival rate and that 5-year survival rate by removing some of those friction points, by giving the companies the tools they need, then you can improve that success rate and get the kind of economic vitality and the high wage rate job growth that you want.
Hey, Jeff, it might be worth talking a little bit. And by the way, I've got the chat pulled up. So if anybody has an observation or a question or a comment, I'll be monitoring the chat as we walk through this. So feel free to do that. But it might be worth talking a little bit about how we see, if you'll go back one slide, this people build a product that no one wants, right? Practically how that comes to Jeff and me and to our teams is someone comes into our offices for our regular what we call office hours or one-on-one touch bases, that our calendars are open and entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs can schedule meetings directly on our calendars. And so they come in and they say, I've got a great idea that I'd like to show you. And I want to get you, do you think it's a great idea? And after they tell me that, they ask that question. And I always say to them, I don't know. Number one, I'm not your target customer, or I haven't talked to enough people. And so what ends up happening is they get this idea, they fall in love with the idea, and they really have a solution in search of a problem. And so when we ask them, well, what's the problem you're really trying to solve with your solution? Many times they really can't articulate that. And so what we end up spending a lot of time on with entrepreneurs is helping them step away from their aspirations, their preconceptions, and their ideas momentarily, suspend those things, and then let's go out and really begin to assess the problem that you're trying to solve. We'll talk more about that in a couple of moments, but that's generally how those pending failures present to Jeff and me, is people have an idea and they're all in on their idea, but they've really not given enough time to assess the size or scope of the business problem they're actually trying to solve.
Yeah, and I mean, the toolkit that we have includes a process called Lean Startup or Lean Canvas process, and it's coupled with customer discovery. And it really puts them in a mindset of being a consultant to their own idea and trying to really be objective to find that information that will back up what they're doing. And the whole reason why we push them through that is so that there's some rigor in customer conversations that avoid the sort of confirmation bias you typically get when you fall in love with your own idea. So that's a good ad, Jeff, for sure. So, how we do some of this, we really start with an entrepreneur-centric approach. And a lot of times in the first session, the first couple of sessions, we're doing a lot more listening than speaking. It's not a consultancy where they come in and we instantly say, well, this is what we did in our last 9 startups, or this is what we're currently doing in our business. There's a lot of triage that goes on in the front end where we're asking good questions, a bit of a Socratic method to really understand what they're trying to achieve. And in addition to the expertise that we have on the team, we give them access to really good subject matter experts and mentors that we're connected to. After 13 years of doing this, we've got a good database of people that know something about just about anything that a startup would face. And as part of that as well, it's an ecosystem of events and networking and training and workshops, both digital and live, that they can access. And one thing I should have said about the business model, which underpins all this, is that all of our services are completely free to the entrepreneur. And I'll explain how it is that we're able to do that in a second. The next component that inevitably the startups or small businesses face is access to capital, whether it's debt and bank loans or bank equivalent type of instruments, or whether it's equity. We try to get them trained up and ready for that, and also to understand the pros and cons of all possibilities in going after either debt or equity. So when we think about this ecosystem and we think about the pillars, and this is something that's developed over a bunch of years of both being entrepreneurs and of observing what it really takes, we've come up with these 4 pillars that we think are crucially important. And when you see these, you're going to say, well, yeah, it's pretty obvious, but it's helpful to have a framework. And the ideal entrepreneurial ecosystem includes a focus on talent development, attraction, and retention. And it's helpful if you have an educational system, higher ed, whether it's your community colleges, whether it's your four-year institutions, whether it's other tactical programs that are driving innovation and talent development. This is crucial. The whole game for building a sustainable venture ecosystem starts and ends with having that talent pool that's got the skills required to build great new businesses. The next thing is this culture of entrepreneurialism. You could compare regions across the country, and those that are vibrant and that have a good entrepreneurial culture, there's a regular drumbeat of activity, community meetings and webinars and training and accelerators and incubators. It's a regular drumbeat. It's not a one and done. It's something where 3 or 4 times a week, there's activities that are drawing in that the entrepreneurs, the small business owners, the investors, and those that can also be helpful in advancing the entrepreneurial ecosystem. The other thing you need is this idea of community or community engagement, and it's flagship industries. For the longest time, the large industries felt like startups and small business were a competition for talent. In the past years, probably the past 10, they began to realize that their future competitive advantage can't just be sustained within the 4 corners of their own business. And so having those large enterprises engaged and realizing that startups are a valuable way to both attract talent to the community where they're trying to make sure that they have a high degree of talent, but also in building new products and services. We need, in addition to the local industries, we need the municipal leadership, we need the chambers, we need all those people around the business segment to understand that in order to have a robust small business and startup scene, they have to play a part. And then finally, we talked about it. Access to capital is crucially important. We look at it as a funding continuum from pre-revenue concept stage all the way through private equity, and there needs to be debt and debt equivalents at every stage. So if you get these things in harmony, you can really have a robust startup and small business scene. But none of this stuff that we've talked about would have been possible over the course of the past 13 years without a funding model that allowed us to provide McKinsey, KPMG quality management consulting services and world-class events at no cost or largely no cost to our clients. And so we've had great world-class sponsors in all aspects of our enterprise, both for Startup Junkie, the Startup Junkie Foundation, and the Conductor. And these are some of the funders that we've had in the past that have played really a central role in making all this stuff happen. It literally would not have been possible without their belief that we could deliver measurable outcomes that would drive the sorts of things that they wanted to see in this region, in this state, in the heartland of the U.S., et cetera. And as you'll see on here, it's both federal, state, foundation, municipal, and private partners that have really helped us.
Yeah, and these, I would call these flagship partners. That does not cover the myriad of corporate partners who have engaged with us at much smaller levels, yet collectively very significant levels.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. It definitely requires a commitment from large and small supporters. And this gives you a smattering of some of the events and the programs that we have run and some of the operations that we have. And this is by no means an extensive list. These are some of the headline activities. You see on here the 10X Growth Accelerator, which has been focused on advancing Arkansas-based companies that are from 100,000 to 10 million to help them break out of that revenue range and to really have the kind of structure and strategic growth plans that will allow them to build sizable businesses. You see on here also Fuel, which is run by the Startup Junkie Foundation. That's a program that focuses on AI ventures from across the country that come here. Many times once they come here, they want to stay here because the access to large flagship enterprises they have. This is just a smattering of the sorts of things we do. We're also principally involved both from board membership and through helping administer the Archangel Alliance, which is the most active, really the only organized angel group in the state. All of these things are important because, as you saw on the slides before, that regular drumbeat, that cadence of activity is what makes the system vibrant. And were it not for all these engaging ways we have of pulling people out and getting them in the process, it would not be a top of mind consideration. So just gives you an idea of some of the stuff that we do.
Yeah, and I would add to that, you see some of these things here. So many of these are for more established entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. Some of these programs like hackathons and health sciences boot camp that we run, by the way, which has been nationally recognized. We're getting ready to consummate our 5th year of doing this. Brand camp for middle school kids. Several of these things are what we would consider really top of the funnel talent development that our hope is would lead to entrepreneurial and innovation development over time. We tell folks when we're working with them, parents, teachers, administrators, college professors, and even students themselves, that even if they choose not to go and start or run a small company, established companies are always looking for innovative entrepreneurial talent. And so we find great returns in doing that top of the funnel kind of work as well.
And this is just one example of something that's really cool that's in our public-private partnership with the University of Central Arkansas. We've got a wonderful chief maker there, and Jason Huselton, who's got a background both in art and mechanical engineering. It's a maker space that's not just open to the students, but to the community. There's a number of workshops that are running there, but they were able to do some very creative things to get the innovative and the sort of making juices going. And more importantly, for building a pre-production prototype or a 3D printed product representation or prototype, this is just a fantastic facility. And it's something that we're glad to have the capability, and it is unique in Conway and in that part of Central Arkansas to have that capability.
Yeah, and if you'll just advance, you'll see that everything, the things that happen here, that they range from kids tinkering to adults tinkering, really just exploring that tinkering and innovation, all the way to developing production-ready prototypes and helping folks with get connected to folks to protect their intellectual property and actually to pursue and prosecute that. We actually got involved in solving some of the PPE crises that we had during COVID, and helping actually 3D print the headgear for face masks and the masks that were just absent, of course, the filters for the COVID crisis.
So where are the operating areas? I mean, we never turn anyone away from anywhere across the state. And because of some of our federal funding for the regional innovation clusters, we'll even have occasionally out-of-state startups that will engage if it makes sense for the cluster. But generally, we'll give you a kind of a view of our operating areas. For what we call the Ozarks Regional Innovation Cluster, which was recently funded again by the Small Business Administration, it's an EDA, a Department of Commerce EDA defined region that includes 4 counties in Northwest Arkansas, 1 in Southwest Missouri, and 4 in Northeastern Oklahoma. And we have drawn clients from all of these areas. And in addition, we have major participation and engagement from the large enterprises that are in the region because of this activity. So while it is about the startups and the entrepreneurs, it doesn't really work if you can't engage the large players as well in the process. And this will give you a view of the 10-county region that is covered by the Conductor, and some of the outreach we do beyond just the immediate area around Conway has been very useful in building support for rural innovation. And this gives you an idea. But again, if someone from Southeast Arkansas or from anywhere in the state needed our help, there's never an instance where we turn them around, but don't support them because they're in a different geography. So even though we operate in these areas, we support entrepreneurs and startups on a statewide basis.
That's right. And this is the 10 counties that in addition to Faulkner, where we're located, we actually sit in Faulkner County as a facility or as an organization. And, our 10X Growth Accelerator, even the cohort we have today, is bringing people from Southeast Arkansas and the Delta, Helena area, from the Jonesboro area. We're bringing people from Northwest Arkansas, and then obviously from Central Arkansas as well. So to Jeff's point, while we have funding contracts that have a specific interest in certain geographies where we put additional focus on those geographies, we all really feel as though we have a statewide remit.
We do have some new initiatives. So as this thing has grown over the course of the past 13 years from being really just a side hustle and a contracting vehicle for me while I was at the university when in the early days of the Innovate Arkansas program, we've continued to add new services and new practice areas. And at the beginning of 2020, which was not a fantastic time to launch anything necessarily, we based on what we'd seen in the previous years, we would occasionally get requests from large companies, large organizations, both for-profit, nonprofit, where they'd say, we really want to capture some of that startup know-how, that lightning in a bottle, or we really need some help with making sure that our talent is right, or our leadership is right, or that we've got the right strategic growth plan in place. And so we were starting to get enough of those sorts of inquiries that didn't fit neatly into the startup mandate that we launched this new practice area called Innovation Junkie. And the idea behind Innovation Junkie is to be able to support those later stage businesses that do have the ability to pay for world-class consulting and innovation facilitation services. So that's something we launched, and it's available to companies of really every size. And we've had both nonprofit and for-profit companies from 50-ish million in revenue up to as big as you can imagine.
Yeah, it'd probably be appropriate to talk about kind of where we do things as Startup Junkie Conductor versus where we do things as Innovation Junkie. We really, you take our 10X growth accelerator, it's from 100,000 to about 10 million, and 10 million roughly is about the point at which we start doing paid engagements with organizations. Sometimes slightly below that if they're extended engagements, long-term engagements outside of the normal coaching, consulting, customer discovery, and the basic kind of one and done or short-term kind of engagements. But generally about the $10 million mark and above, most of those clients for Innovation Junkie are in the more like the 25 million, 50 million, up to 250 to 500 million even. And so if it's below that threshold, we consider it as part of the work that we do for whom we have contracts to do the work. If it's above that threshold, and it's a bit of a gray area threshold, but 10 million is a kind of a good basis to understand where we do for-profit or for hire billable consulting work versus work as part of our public-private partnership and our funded third-party funded work, if you will.
And an example that brought all of it together that was spearheaded originally by Jeff Standridge was the innovation facilitation work that we do with Arkansas Children's. And this was really interesting and novel approach in that the leadership at Arkansas Children's on the Arkansas Children's Research Institute had been talking to all the different entrepreneurial support organizations in the state about various things. And they turned that around and said, well, listen, we don't want to have to select one or the other because you all have unique attributes and aspects to what you offer. Is there a way it can all be pulled together? So under the Innovation Junkie banner, we pulled in the organizations you see here. Clearly, it was a Startup Junkie and Conductor team. It was also Health Tech Arkansas. It was the Venture Center in the year one of operation, and in a very significant way, the University of Arkansas, the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And this is a 3-year innovation facilitation program that's intended to make Arkansas Children's a world-class recognized pediatric innovation center. And we've been so excited with what that has done. There's some new things we're going to be rolling out relative to Venture Studio. That's very exciting, but it's just been a fantastic program. And the whole idea behind this is how can innovation be used to ensure even better patient outcomes for Arkansas Children's? And so, Jeff, I don't know if you'd want to add to that, but feel free.
No, very, very excited about that program. It is a daily initiative where we are literally boots on the ground, and it's very exciting, both for the state of Arkansas. I guess more than both, for the state of Arkansas, for Arkansas Children's Hospital, and for these entrepreneurial and innovation support organizations to be able to work together to make this happen for our state.
Something else that we do as part of the overall picture is, because we think it's important and we think there's a need for advocacy, is in 2020, and we'll be doing an update in 2021, we developed a Arkansas entrepreneurship policy map. The idea here was to be able to provide guidance, guidelines, and recommendations for how federal and state leadership can improve the situation for small business and startups. And it was 60 total recommendations. It was built on some of the basis that the Kauffman News Business Plan for America stated, but it was customized to some very specific things that we cared a lot about. And so this was really an idea of saying, if you really want to have this robust startup and small business scene, there's some things that need to change that will remove some of the burden or facilitate more inclusion. There was a variety of different initiatives. And if there's interest in this, given what everyone on this call does, we'd certainly be happy to provide this document for your review and consideration in the future. So, Jeff, why don't you pick it up here and talk a little bit about some of the amazing things that are happening specifically in Conway, and some of the reason why we're just getting to facility focus at this point after 5 to 6 years of working on it.
So one of the things you'll hear Jeff and me talk about regularly is, people say, well, how do we get started? And or they'll come to us and they'll say, we're looking for a building. And our general guidance is, don't start with a building. We are about to hit our 5th year in Conway, and we still don't have a building. I lease the spaces for here that we operate out of. Jeff leases the spaces that Startup Junkie operates out of there in Northwest Arkansas. And what we have found is that when organizations, or communities rather, I should say, start with a building, they end up spending 85% of their bandwidth actually raising funds to pay for the building, and only about 20% of their bandwidth programming to serve the needs of the entrepreneurs. And so we have stuck to that mantra. We've stuck to that strategy. And as a result of this movement that was created here by Jeff's effort and the effort of the Startup Junkie team and a number of other community leaders here, we actually grew to the point where we needed a building, and our public utility, Conway Corporation, purchased what was City Hall. And I just saw, back up one moment here, Jeff.
Sure thing.
I just saw that Matthew Shreve said he has a tile in, no.
Oh, wrong way, sorry. There we go.
There you go. He has a tile in this building right here, in this section here, where they actually allowed kids to create tiles and they cemented them. I will tell you, Matthew, that became an area of dilemma for us as we were thinking about how to protect that, because if we pull those tiles off of this former City Hall building, you see it here and here on both views. If we pull those off, we ran the likelihood of actually cracking them. And so what we're doing is building a wall about 8 or 10 inches out from that. And you go forward, Jeff, one more slide, you'll see the new rendering. There's actually going to be a bit of a new wall where between this brick wall and there'll be an actual breezeway there, small breezeway that actually protects the integrity of that original mosaic. That's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, but this will be the Arnold Innovation Center. We're expecting it to go online probably the 1st of January, maybe toward the end of January, depending on construction schedules. They're actually working on it now. City Hall has moved out. It's been gutted. It's now being redone. It'll have 3 major purposes. Number one, we'll have co-working space on the 1st floor. And that will be to create that entrepreneurial culture, or to contribute to that entrepreneurial culture of entrepreneurs coming together, sharing ideas, sharing resources, sharing energy with one another. We'll have a meeting space for up to about 70 or 75 people that'll be on the south end of the building on the bottom floor. And then upstairs, the footprint of the whole building is about 7,500 square feet. And then we have about 4,000 or so square feet upstairs, which will be comprised of conductor offices, some conference rooms, and some scale-up space, if you will, companies that have outgrown, for instance, the co-working and they need a pod upstairs. Maybe they still need some programming services from the Conductor, but they also need some subsidized rent. Maybe they're not ready to pay market rent yet. We'll put those high potential companies upstairs into this startup space, or scale up space, I should say. And I have to also say that Conway Corporation has been the primary benefactor for the sole benefactor for us in the Arnold Innovation Center, named after former CEO Richie Arnold.
It's pretty exciting stuff. And this is another example where the USDA has been a fantastic partner for us. And the point was to bring the sort of entrepreneurial thinking and the skills to those areas that are often forgotten. As many of you have heard from parts of the state that are not where you have high population density, you've faced urbanization for the last 70 years. There's a real interest in figuring out how to keep those small and vibrant areas vibrant and make sure that there are employment opportunities and small businesses and startups that will keep some of the graduating youth in those areas. And so this program, the Level Up program sponsored by the USDA, was really important outreach to make sure that those small businesses in rural areas that were impacted by COVID-19 had support and access that would be difficult for them to get to otherwise, trying to meet the entrepreneurs and small businesses where they are, really. Here's another new initiative that we've worked on, and you might ask yourself, it's like, well, why are you focusing on anything that's international? And we had the opportunity to build a venture bridge, if you will, between South Korea and the US. And the reason why that was interesting was South Korea is a strong democracy, great manufacturing and technology base. We knew we had capability that would be of interest to the large companies that are there from the ecosystem that's here in Arkansas. We also knew that there were capabilities over there that would be interesting to the midsize and large companies that were here. So building this bridge was a really important thing to do. We started with an accelerator type model where we had a 11-team cohort that was competitively selected from our partner in South Korea, the Korea International Trade Association. They participated virtually over this about a 5-month program with getting access to and ready to do business in North America. Some of the companies that went through that first cohort are evaluating Arkansas as being their beachhead for North America. And you have to understand too, the population density that's over there and what they understand about US business tends to be constrained to the coast. A lot of understanding of what's going on in Silicon Valley or on the East Coast, not much recognition on the part of these really fantastic Korean technology companies of the kind of concentration of Fortune 500s that we have in Arkansas. So part of it was education, part of it was awareness, part of it is connection. It's proved to be really beneficial, and it would not have been possible were it not for a University of Arkansas graduate named Louis Diesel, who is our head of Asia, whose mother happened to be Korean, his father was American. He speaks perfect English and perfect Korean, and he's been a real catalyst to get the program going. We're now in the second cohort, and we're using this as a potential for a beachhead for Arkansas-based ventures that are looking to expand into Asia and would really rather deal with a proven democracy and long-term ally of the U.S. Rather than the alternative. So the next thing we'll talk a little bit about, and it's the genesis really for a lot of this presentation, was after 13 years of working in this, after 5 really engaging years of working with Jeff Standridge, we decided it was time to write a book that embodied the story that we've been talking about. So this past year, we've launched the book called Creating Startup Junkies, available on Amazon. It captures a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in much more detail than what we've covered this morning. The idea was to provide both inspiration and a toolkit for how an unexpected place, a rural area, somewhere in the heartland, somewhere not typically viewed as a startup hotbed, could build something, could take control of the economic empowerment and economic development of their region without it being totally reliant on just attracting in new large businesses. And this was it was a project of passion for both of us. It's had pretty good reviews, and we just hope that it brings great utility to groups like this and others that are trying to really have a template for how to build something that can change the way people live in terms of this vibrant startup and small business scene.
Yeah, and if you'll back up, I would encourage you guys to go to creatingstartupjunkies.com because a couple of the resources we're going to talk about next, you can actually download from that location. So creatingstartupjunkies.com, the name of this presentation effectively, and you can download a number of items there.
Okay. And again, to reiterate, the 4 pillars are a central tenet in that book. And it is something: talent, culture, community engagement, and capital. And we talk a lot about in depth about what each one of those things requires in order to get it put in place in a way that is meaningful. And the one thing we didn't want to do was just kind of provide a lecture in the book or some anecdotal evidence. So we moved beyond that with a real toolkit inspired by the lean canvas and the business canvas approach. We created a venture ecosystem canvas that would allow economic developers, people on the mayor's staff, colleges, other people that have interest to really assess where are we today? What are the assets we have today? What are our aspirations? And what are the constraints that we have to deal with? So this is a tool that allows you to capture all that by asking really good questions. It's in effect an assessment on one page. And Jeff, if you want to add more detail there, please do.
No, I would say also you'll see some remnants of the rainforest canvas kind of reflected here. You'll see some strategic doing elements kind of reflected here as well in terms of the top assets, the supporting strengths, and what have you. So, one of the things that we find is when we go into a community, and we do have a number of communities who will reach out to us all over the globe effectively, is they have differences of opinion of what the organization needs. Many times or the community needs. We need a building. Well, we need a makerspace building. Well, we need a co-working space building. And then other people saying, well, we just need some programming. And so what this is really intended to do is to take that group of committed change agents. And that's something that we have found in many instances. There's either one kind of instigator or initiator, but there's some other people who could very easily become committed change agents, which we'll talk about in a couple of moments. And this mechanism or this tool, this venture ecosystem building canvas, is meant to get that group to step back from all of their biases. Remember what we said about entrepreneurs. They have a solution in search of a problem. So we kind of ask those committed change agents to step back from their biases or their aspirations regarding a solution and really identify what is it that their community has versus what does it need, where are the gaps, and get everyone on the same page in a consensual manner in order to move forward with the most productivity with the least amount of human expenditure of effort, so to speak.
Perfect. And actually, later this week, we're going to be in Boone County as part of a program that's taking through some attendees on a live event that will be over there through this very process. There'll be both the presentation that you're seeing, and there'll be a workshop to actually take folks that are much like who we have on this call through this process in a really kind of a hands-on way. So we're excited about getting this to the next level and getting it out there. And this is a key point. And Jeff, why don't you take this one? I think you speak to it well.
Yeah, people actually say to us, how do we get started? And I say, start where you are. And how do you figure out where you are? Well, it's that venture ecosystem building canvas. Don't try to step away from the bias that you have to have a building in order to be successful. Make no mistake about it. A building will serve as a centerpiece. It will help. But if you don't have the movement first, a building is going to be a lot of expense before you actually have the programming to support it. And if you'll go to the next slide, you'll see where we talk about that a little more. Number one, focus on getting your committed group or your group of committed change agents. Who are the people who have an interest in building an innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in your respective community? Gather those folks together. Complete an asset inventory. You can use other asset inventories. We recommend the venture ecosystem building canvas because we know it works. But the real key here is to get everyone to help create create and leverage the assets and to develop a shared vision or a common vision. We like to focus on the 4 pillars of talent, culture, community engagement, capital, in that order. And we talk about those throughout this presentation, throughout our book, and throughout our consulting practice. Don't try to do it alone. Don't reinvent the wheel. Plug into the network, which is Startup Junkie, Conductor, the other entrepreneurial ecosystems or entrepreneurial support organizations that exist in the ecosystem. We say that we will collaborate with anyone who will. And I think our track record certainly backs that up as well. And then when it comes time for a building, whether that's a rented building or a structured, constructed building, or it's a purchase building, build that supporting infrastructure when the demand begins to get overwhelming. When you get to the point where you just can't exist without a building, and that's kind of where we are. We beg, borrow, and sometimes steal, in a good, appropriate, legal kind of way, space all over this community in order to fulfill our obligations of serving the entrepreneurial community. We do believe now, since we have this movement and our demand has become a bit overwhelming of our space, when we open up the Arnold Innovation Center, we believe that the demand for our services will burgeon, because now there's also a locational identity with the movement that we created 5 years ago.
And I'll give you 2 additional examples to build on that. I mean, this assertion, which I know we've kind of foot stomped about, don't start with the building, that wasn't just something that we studied and didn't make the mistake ourselves. In the early days of Northwest Arkansas venture scene, there was a coalition of entrepreneurs that thought sure that we needed a co-working space. This was more than 10 years ago. And so they got together and they figured out how to pull together just enough money to get one launched called the Iceberg, which was in a section not far from the Walton Arts Center in Fayetteville. Well, it was great. I mean, it was a cool facility, but the ecosystem was not nearly ready for it. And there was not a funding model to support it in the long term. So those things that Jeff said about, you now have to worry about how you're going to pay the rent and cover all the expenses. That's what that group dealt with. And it ultimately closed because the area was not ready for it. Now I'll give you a contrasting example.
Oh, before you do that, let me
Please.
share an anecdote that I don't know that I've ever told you this, Jeff. In 2013, when we started our exploration here in Conway, it was an outgrowth of a chamber initiative when I was chair of the chamber called Startup Conway steering team. It may have been either 2013 or early 2014, but we were in the early days before we launched in 16. I actually drove to Fayetteville to go visit the Iceberg.
Yep.
I showed up there. I couldn't get in touch with anybody, so I just drove up there one afternoon, walked in, all the lights were off. It was completely empty. The one door had a punch button lock on it. The other door down the hall didn't, but it happened to be open. So I walked in, turned on all the lights, went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is really cool. Not a soul in there, took pictures and brought back the concepts to Conway. So I can be certainly a testament, if you will, to the fact that their building outpaced their ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was truly the early days. And so the contrasting example of where we saw it done well. And I think you learn by doing things, sometimes doing the wrong thing. So we learned there, ecosystem not ready, not enough activity, not enough events, not enough structure, not enough entrepreneurs or investors and other people to really drive it. Around the same time, and they were a little bit farther along, we got some visibility into what was happening in Indianapolis. And we got that by way of Christian Anderson, who's been a big thinker in startup ecosystems and early stage venture investing for a long time. He's got ties to Arkansas, Conway, footprint in Conway and Indianapolis. But they opened something there called the Speakeasy. And it was this really cool, kind of grungy, interesting co-working space. It was right next to a place they called Developer Town, which was this kind of quirky, you can imagine a warehouse that had small buildings, like small, tiny houses inside of it that could be moved around on wheels as people were working on projects. The difference with that Speakeasy was they waited in that ecosystem until they had 1,500 people that wanted to be members before they ever opened the facility. So it was demand driven. They already had all this activity going on in Indianapolis with events and networking and programs and a variety of different things. that was the right way to do it. And so that's why that has become such an integral part of what we do. And we learned too. There's been a number of other groups that have wanted to put co-working facilities and acceleration spaces in Northwest Arkansas. And now we're ready. So, I mean, there's a WeWork Labs here, there's Likewise, but it took more than 10 years. So, and being patiently urgent through this process and focusing on the low cost things first, the programs and the activities and the pulling people together and using your existing facilities is really key. And I know that was a big foot stomper, but it's just so sad when you see a place that builds this kind of white elephant building and it sits there forever, trying to figure out how a revenue model can work to support it. So,
right. And I'll use one final anecdote, if you will. And this is kind of an in-between. A community who's approached us at least 3 times, and they had a congressman come and ask us if we would engage with them. And so we did. And that community is divided on what they need. Some believe they need a makerspace, some that believe they need an event space, and some believe they need quality programming and a cadence like Jeff talked about. And so they have a coalition of potential change agents, but they've never had someone to really bring them together to get them to step away from their biases and to develop a consensus. And so we're going on 3 years now, and they've not moved forward hardly at all. So another kind of anecdote that's kind of in between those two.
Yeah, and if you have a strong bias for action that you need to do something, start with the cheap stuff. I mean, hold it in your local public library or whatever facilities you have, events and gatherings. Use the assets you have to start with is kind of the key message. That is the entirety of the formal presentation. If I think we have just a few minutes here, we can take some questions if there are any.
And I'll throw out, Jeff, and let you just answer this question. I'll throw the softball here and open up the hopefully the questioning from the group. And you can either put it in chat if you don't feel like opening up and speaking, or you can turn on your camera and your or at least your microphone and ask the question directly. But we get asked all the time, what does it cost to launch something like this?
Yeah, well, so it's a good question. And again, a lot of it depends on what you want to start with. But what I will tell you is, if you want to have a dedicated team in your area that's working on entrepreneurial support, you're talking $250,000 to $500,000 a year to get that off the ground. And that's just to cover the staff required to really be focused on it every day. It's difficult to do this kind of stuff as a part-time initiative. You want something that sticks. That's the kind of ballpark you're talking about. In the early days in the venture ecosystem, 2 compelling things really propelled what has happened in Northwest Arkansas. And then we'll talk specifically about Conway. One was we had a significant commitment early on from the Walton Family Foundation by way of Windrock International to expand the entrepreneurial ecosystem in this area. And it was called the NWA Venture Team. It was the beginnings really of a Startup Junkie's footprint. The second was the Small Business Administration Regional Innovation Cluster. The 2 of those things taken together was significant funding. We were in the $500,000-ish a year, and both were essentially competitive solicitations where we had to prove that we could deliver the outcomes that were meaningful. In Conway, it was a similar type of thing. We had to go through about 7 months of research and coming up with a compelling study to put before the University of Central Arkansas. And then it was a significant amount of funding that the Board of Regents had to get comfortable with that would be worthwhile and accretive to the mission of the University of Central Arkansas. And the commitment we made to them was, once you get started with this layered funding model, you really have to look for other sources. And that's one of the things that we've been good at doing, is finding multiple different sources that can all see the kinds of benefits in terms of measurable outcomes, new ventures, job creation, et cetera, that can make a difference in the area.
The U.S. Small Business Administration has been a great partner. In fact, we have also won their competitive award that regional innovation cluster, that Startup Junkie in Northwest Arkansas, Startup Junkie Consulting, has won twice. So each solicitation, there were 7 companies selected. And so Startup Junkie was one of 7. The next solicitation, the Conductor, was one of 7. So collectively, we've been 2 of the 14, so to speak. in the United States, and they've been a great partner in helping us fulfill the mission. And then, other sources of funding. We have opened up a Conductor fund at the University of Central Arkansas Foundation. And so we have a number of corporate sponsors that work with us to help us, cover a lot of the incidentals and what have you. So to answer that question, 250 to 500 is the range Jeff gave us. I always tell people to kind of aim at that 350 mark. You'll kind of be in a sweet spot. So with that, why don't we open it up for some other questions?
I have a couple of questions that I've received. And before that, thanks guys for such a great presentation. It was really exciting, and thank you very much. One of the questions that I received, can your group help a business develop an e-commerce website that sells the products that they currently carry in their store?
I would say that the way to look at us is a sounding board. And so people will come in and they'll say, we think we want to do this. And we'll ask them a bunch of questions. We do have expertise in digital marketing and we understand e-commerce. What we don't do is actually do the work. So we don't get out there and actually build the technology to make it go. But we can certainly connect businesses to people that have a ton of depth in e-commerce, that do build Shopify sites, that understand the best way to tie in social and influencer marketing. So because we're all kind of like Swiss Army knives on the team, we are able to assess just about any business and understand what their needs are and then connect them to precisely the resources they need.
And perhaps even help them develop their plan a little further before they start paying developers to write code. Big cost savings for them in that regard.
Okay, well, that's great. Can a person, this kind of is in the same vein of thought, can a person with an existing small business get help from you, or do you provide any ongoing support for systems once they are established?
We do. So first of all, once a client, always a client. Once somebody walks in here, they can always come back as a client. There's never any restriction on that. And yeah,
we kind of call it the entrepreneurial mafia. There's really only one way out of being a client with the Conductor or Startup Junkie.
Exactly. So to get to some specific things for existing businesses, they might want to look at the Conductor 10X program. If they're in that revenue range between 100,000 and 10 million, there tends to be one cohort a year. It's fantastic. It is a compressed small business MBA in 14 weeks. So that's one way. The other way is sometimes people think, well, you're just focused on tech. That's not true. We have clients that come in that are running food trucks. We've got clients that run restaurants. We have clients that are working on consumer packaged goods. We've got clients that have super high tech. It's all sectors, really all stages up to about that 10 to 15 million mark where the services are all completely free and third party subsidized. So you never have to worry about getting an invoice.
Fantastic. I guess let's just open up the chat to see if we've got anything else. You guys may have covered everything so well that they don't have any questions.
Well, you can get in touch with us a couple of ways. Number one, go to creatingstartupjunkies.com. That's probably the easiest, and they can fill out a form there, or they can always reach out to us at startupjunkie.org or arconductor.org.
Absolutely. And if you want it, you can check out Creating Startup Junkies for that venture ecosystem canvas. If you want to read the book, it's available nearly free through Amazon and the Kindle version at 99 cents. So if you'd like to read more deeply about some of the stuff we talked about, that's an easy way to do it.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you very, very much. And I know I will be looking at the Amazon page. Well, I think what we can go ahead and move on to our next speaker now. I saw that Mr. Duda is on. There he is. I want to introduce everybody to Richard Duda from the Small Business Administration. He began his experience in economic development with SBA right out of college, underwriting and servicing large SBA commercial loans in Middle Georgia. He went on to start up 7A loan programs with local and national lenders in Atlanta. and package loans for banks in North Carolina with an expertise in franchising. He also worked in franchise development with Hardee's, Popeyes, and Church's Chicken. Richard has over 30 years of strategic account selling experiences and has owned and operated several small businesses of his own. He joined SBA through the Office of Disaster Assistance, assisting small businesses impacted by Hurricane Harvey and Maria to access capital and to rebuild. In 2018, Richard became a lender relations specialist with the SBA Arkansas District Office, where he is also the International Trade Officer, recruiting and training SBA lenders on loan eligibility, underwriting, and proper servicing of SBA loan programs, and advises them on SBA SOP revisions and policy updates. He also performs annual compliance reviews with Arkansas Small Business Technology and Development Centers, micro lenders, conducts multicultural outreach initiatives, and served several years as the program manager for Emerging Leaders Streetwise MBA program in an intensive 7 months CEO leadership cohort. That's quite a lot. Welcome, Mr. Duda, and thank you for being here today.
Morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Hey, Mary Margaret. Can you also see my slide deck?
we can.
Okay. Do you see the speaker notes or just the slide deck?
I just see the slide deck.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Mary Margaret. I am going to go over a lot of information in a very short period of time. I have about an hour. I could probably do this in about 2 to 3 hours if we had time, but I'm going to try to just give you a very brief high-level overview of the SBA and our core pillars, which are the 3 C's of the SBA. And I'll explain that a little bit more. But anyhow, we'll go ahead and just jump right into this. So we're going to talk about the history of the Small Business Administration. The Small Business Administration was created in 1953 by the Small Business Act. And we are basically the ombudsman, which is a fancy word for the mouthpiece, I would say, of small business in America, in the United States, and all of our territories. And anyhow, we do a lot of things. Many of you have become familiar with us through the Economic Disaster Assistance Loan Programs. I'm going to briefly talk about that. The real focus of this presentation is just sort of an overview of our programs. So with that, the SBA really has 3 pillars of our organization, and those are access to capital, counseling for small businesses, and federal contracting. All right, the first of these 3 C's is capital access, and this simply refers to the amount of money a business has available to pay for things such as starting up, paying for day-to-day operating expenses, and funding revenue growth. The business must be for profit. It must be independently owned and operated. It must have reasonable owner equity to invest in the business. Typically, lenders like to see a 10% equity position, which means the business owner has about 10% of the value of the business in equity in the business. It must be owned and operated by a U.S. citizen or a legal resident, and it must meet the U.S. size standards, the SBA size standards, and those are available on this link. You can also find them on sba.gov. I think I've heard it said on several occasions that about 95% of small businesses in Arkansas pretty much fit those size standards. For manufacturing, it's typically up to 500 employees, and for service businesses, it's typically up to somewhere around 10 million. All right, we're going to just briefly talk about the COVID EIDL program. This program, as many of you know, is a 30-year loan program. The loan is not a grant. It is a 30-year repayable loan. It is not forgiven, and the funds are still available. It's at 3.75% for-profit businesses. You can find information about it on sba.gov. And that money is for working capital. Last week, I had 3 calls from people asking if they could use that money to buy equipment or to purchase a business. No. That money is for the operating costs, the operating cash needs of the business, not fixed asset financing. Fixed asset financing is available through our other SBA loan programs, the 7A and the 504. So as I mentioned before, I'm not going to go through all of these just so that you'll have the slide deck, and I can email this slide deck to Mary Margaret just due to the essence of time. The program is still available. There's no personal guarantee on loans below. I think it's $25,000. Went over the interest rate. The repayment is deferred for up to 24 months. There is collateral required on full loans over $25,000. The micro loans amounts are up to $200,000. And as I mentioned before, those monies are to be used for operating capital needs of the business. All right, so the next thing we're going to move into is financing your business. All right, so let's talk about what is an eligible business. All right, eligible businesses are for-profit businesses. Ineligible businesses include things like lending activities, nonprofit institutions or organizations, real estate investment companies, pyramid sales. So back to real estate investment, I would say at least 2-3 times a month, we get requests from people who want to buy properties as a personal investment vehicle, fix them up, rent them out. Sometimes they're low income areas. That's like, trying to, using your money to buy stock and get an investment or a return on that. It's called the Small Business Administration. And so with that, Congress has told us that, because we don't make legislation, Congress actually makes the legislation and we execute it. So no on investment real estate, no on pyramid sale plan like Mary Kay or Amway. The business cannot be involved in any illegal activities, especially if it's still a federal offense. So that brings in the whole marijuana issue. It may be legal, or medical marijuana may be legal, but it is still a federal offense. So it is not financeable with SBA funds. And the borrower cannot be on probation, parole, or pending any criminal charges. All right, so how does the SBA loan program work? We do get calls from people who want to come to the office and fill out an application and walk away with a check. And it would be nice if it worked that way, but unfortunately, it does not work that way. Fortunately, it does work really well. The business actually applies for a loan with a lender. The SBA is not a bank, and we are not in the direct lending program of business other than the EIDL, the economic disaster loans and physical disaster loans. So the borrower goes to their lender, bank, credit union, and then that lender makes a decision on if the borrower is eligible for an SBA loan. And then the lender actually underwrites the loan, and the SBA is providing a guarantee, basically insuring a portion of it for the lender. So SBA does not provide grants to individuals to help them start or grow a business. There is an SDI grant, and that's really more on strategic defense and on high tech. You can find all federal grants on excuse me, I got ahead of myself, grants, grants.gov. That is where all federal grants are located. All right. And so, like I said, just wanted to go over that real quickly so you kind of understood how the program works. And now we will talk about our regular loan products. So our regular loan products are the 7A loan, which is pretty much our flagship. The 504 working capital, 504 loan, and then the micro loan program. And I'll go into each one of these in a little bit more detail. So the 7A loan program is probably our most widely used because that money can be used for such things as real estate purchase or refinance, short and long-term working capital, refinance current business debt, purchase furniture, fixtures, and equipment and supplies, as well as to purchasing a business that is for sale. The SBA cannot finance a portion of a business purchase. So you can't buy 25% into a business and use an SBA loan. It has to be 100% of the ownership of that business. And the other thing I was going to explain was that the SBA loan product is not what I'm a former SBA lender. It's not what I call a retail product. You don't just walk into the bank and say, I'd like to walk out with an SBA loan today, please. It's not like a CD or a money market account or a savings account. What happens is the borrower has to meet with the lender. The lender has to make a decision as to whether or not conventional financing is available on reasonable terms for that business. So like I said, it's not a just walk in and get one because you want to have one. It's that the lender has to be able to look and see if it fits, if it doesn't fit the criteria that the bank would normally make a loan on. So we'll go over that in just a little bit in a minute. And then our 504 loan program is really our fixed asset financing, no working capital. So that is for what I call usually big money, big dollars. The first one that I did when I was a lender was to a lumber mill. So it's, basically $1 million to expand a building. It might be, $1 million or $750,000 for machinery and equipment, big saws, maybe manufacturing. It has been used for hotels, but honestly, most lender portfolios are full of hotels right now. So the way it works is with a 504 loan, is that we call it a 50-40-10. So typically a lender comes in and finances 50%. So let's say it's a $1 million, it's a bicycle company and they are expanding and they're going to need $1 million to buy land and building, to expand the land of the building, buy the lot next to them, and then equipment, big time manufacturing equipment. So it's $1 million. The bank steps in and loans 50% and gets a first mortgage. So that's $500,000 to the first mortgage lender. And the lender loves it because they have almost no risk in the deal. Then a certified development company, and we have 3 in Arkansas. Certified development company steps in and finances typically 40%, which would be $400,000. And that's an SBA guaranteed debenture, which is sold. And so the interest rate right now is somewhere around 3.25%, I think, 3% on 25-year money for that debenture. And then the borrower typically would put in 10%. If it's a startup or a special purpose building, it's a little bit more than 10%, but just typically think of it as 50-40-10. All right, the next thing I'm going to talk about is our microloan program. And the microloan program is really for those borrowers that cannot access loans through the typical market, commercial lending market. So the SBA has 2 microlenders in the state of Arkansas, Forge and Communities Unlimited. And last year, I think the average loan was $23,000. The year before that, it was about $17,000. And it's really for those small businesses that cannot walk in and access a commercial loan through a regular lender, bank, or credit union. So I'll give you an example. I actually do the reviews each year of the micro lenders. So a couple examples was an alterations business. The woman was expanding her business and she needed 2 additional sewing, industrial commercial grade sewing machines. I think they were like about $7,500 each. She didn't really want to put it on a credit card at 24% interest. And she'd been in business for about 2 years. So she really didn't have that historical cash flow. And so the bank didn't really, that amount of money is really not a commercial loan for most banks. So she went to one of our micro lenders and they were able to give her a loan. And typically the loan on those is right now, I think it's a maximum of about 7.5%. And the term has actually gone up. I think it's 7 or 8 years now to pay that back. No prepayment penalty on any of the SBA programs, by the way. So that just kind of gives you an example of the microloan. It's a great program because when a borrower has a microloan, there is a case manager assigned to that borrower that works with them. They do, I think, a quarterly check-in on the financial statements of the business. Is everything going great? If things are not going great, it's really a good engagement, because then that lender can say, oh, well, have you thought about doing this? Or we can modify the loan and do this. Or have you thought about this? So it's a great resource for those small businesses. A lot of borrowers pay those off early, and then they graduate into a conventional loan product, or they graduate into an SBA loan. All right, next thing I'm just going to briefly talk about is exporting, which is something very near and dear to my heart. I am the District International Trade Officer for the state of Arkansas. So if you have an interest in exporting, or you have a client or know somebody that's interested in exporting and they're an existing business, feel free to have them reach out and touch base with me. We work with all the other federal agencies here to assist small businesses. But I want to talk about the STEP program, the Export Express program, and the Export Working Capital program. And we also have an international trade loan for expanding exporters. So really the STEP grant, what it does is the STEP grant allows a business to be reimbursed for up to $10,000 for the costs of setting up exporting. So some of those costs can include the travel to that country, the trade shows, converting the website into the language of that country, fees related to that. So the small business actually pays for those expenses, and then provided that they were eligible and verifiable, then the business owner gets reimbursed for those. And it's really a great program. It's operated by the World Trade Center. The SBA funds that program to the World Trade Center every year. So it's money that's sitting out there. It has not, all the funds have not been used for this year. So if you're interested, strongly suggest that you check that out. The next thing I want to talk about is our Export Express program. Our Export Express program, Export Working Capital program, and international trade loans. Those are financial vehicles that are available for businesses that are exporting. So most of those businesses have been exporting for about a year or two. The benefit to that is that, in summary, because as you can imagine, they can get pretty detailed, but really one of the main benefits to the business is that when a business is exporting, most banks, a lot of banks in Arkansas will not take those foreign accounts receivable as collateral, and they won't look at them as, they won't loan against them. And so your business manufacturing, let's go back to bicycles, you're a manufacturer making bicycles, but you also export, you know, the brake system to 3 different countries. Well, maybe those accounts receivable are valued at, you know, $500,000. Well, you go to your bank and say, I'd like a loan, and this is what I have to pledge. And the bank says, we don't do that, and it's very risky. And so then you go, well, I need money to help fund that because I have to put the money into it to make it, to sell it, then I have an accounts receivable. So what the SBA does, which is really cool, is that we have lenders that will lend on those accounts receivable, and SBA guarantees the loan against that. Also, EXIM Bank, the Export-Import Bank of America, a lot of the lenders that do the SBA lending also work with EXIM Bank, because EXIM Bank also provides insurance on those accounts receivable. So that kind of walks you through sort of those. Our international trade loan program is really usually higher dollar amounts. I think those are usually pretty big, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. And that's usually for major machinery and equipment. And where the international export program is different is that the lender gets a 90% guarantee instead of anywhere between a 50 and 75% guarantee. So lenders like this as well. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about is the surety bond program. That's another sweet spot for me. I'm very proud. I'm not bragging. Well, I guess I'm a little bit. When I first came to SBA 3.5 years ago, I did not know about this program. And when I got back to Little Rock from our annual conference, I was like, how many of these have we got? And I think we have maybe like under 20. And so I have been tooting the horn, and please help us spread the word on this. We increased in the last 3 years, 67%. I think that was the number, 65, 67% increase in surety bonds. And the surety bonding program is a phenomenal program that a lot of folks still don't know about. So help us spread the word to assist small businesses in accessing better terms on their bonds so that they can bid on contracts. So federal contracting can be a great option for your small business, but how do you compete with these larger companies with more experience? So we help businesses facing barriers to access these markets. And small businesses in construction and other industries most often obtain contract surety bonds to qualify for contracts in the private sector and for government contracts at the federal, state, and city level. But sometimes your business may be too new or have credit issues, or you may not have enough assets, working capital, to qualify for contract bonding. So the SBA's Small Business Guarantee Surety Bonding Guarantee Program comes in, and it basically helps with those capacities. So basically what it allows the business to do is to get almost a double dip and double, their surety bond, their bonding capacity. So their bonding capacity means how big of a bond do they qualify for? Okay, and I'm just going to try to keep this really simple. So for most surety bonds, if you have a small contracting company, you go to get a surety bond, you have $150,000 in working capital. The multiplier is 10, so you can get a performance bond up to about 1.5 million. So that's it. You cannot bid on any projects that you don't have that bid bond that's higher than that. If the project's 4 million or 3 million, you can't bid on that. So you're really limited, and the surety bonding company ties that working capital up. So with the SBA surety bonding program, what they do is say, okay, you have 150,000 in working capital. How much of a line of credit do you have with your bank? Well, you have a $150,000 line of credit with your bank. So the SBA says, let's put those two together. That's 300,000, 150,000 in working capital, $150,000 in line of credit. That's 300,000. Multiply that times 10, and that's $3 million in bonding capacity. You see, that's double what you had before. And since SBA is guaranteeing the bond to the SBA approved surety bond company, and there's like 54 of them, I think, nationwide, the interest rate that these small businesses are paying is considerably less on that surety bond. So it is a win-win all the way around. So please help us spread the information about the program out there. So if you work with an agent who participates in the program, you have a chance to grow your business by competing for more and larger contracts, and you can basically, once again, increase your surety bonding capacity. We in the district office, we don't write these bonds. You would go to sba.gov and you will click on the surety bonding program link, and you will find out information about that. So this last year, we guaranteed over $7 billion in contract bonds, and that was in 2020. So that's actually gone way up because nationwide surety bonds have gone up. And with all of the infrastructure improvements that are planned for the country, it's a great time to, if you're a contractor, it's a great time to explore this. All right. And in 2020, there were over 1,800 small businesses that obtained those surety bonds. And here's a little bit more information about the program. I already talked about the capacity, the capital, and the business character, and the credit history, like any other lending program, also helps determine the eligibility for that. And then finally, here's some information about the network of agents. They have 42 companies and over 350 agents that participate. All right, now we're going to move into federal contracting. And federal contracting can be a great option for your small business as well. But how can you compete with larger companies with more experience? So the government, as you know, is the world's largest buyer. It purchases more than just military and civilian installations. These amount to nearly $500 billion a year. And the government's procurement policy, which encourages prime and subcontracting opportunities for small businesses, is a catalyst for economic growth. Federal statute defines government-wide prime contracting goals, which represent a primary tool in helping small firms be considered for government contracts. The current government-wide procurement goal is at least 23% of all federal contracting dollars. What does that mean? A lot of opportunity out there. By participating in federal contracts, you can get a piece of the pie and obtain lucrative awards for your business. 3 methods of limiting competition to win government contracts include full and open competition, small business set-asides, including certification-based and socioeconomic categories, and sole source. This limited competition can help small businesses win government contracts. Please keep in mind that to participate and compete for contracts with the federal government, you must register your business. You will need to obtain a DUNS number and register your business in the System for Award Management. Some of you have seen this, it's called SAM, S-A-M, prior to competing for contracts. The federal government has specified annual prime contracting goals for designated small businesses. This includes exclusively allowing small businesses to compete for certain contracts if at least 51% of their business is owned and controlled by individuals in these socioeconomic categories. The categories include women-owned, small disadvantaged, hub zone, and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. For targeted set-asides and acquisition goals, women-owned small businesses for 5%, small disadvantaged businesses, including 8A certified, 5%, hub zones, historically underutilized business zones, 3%, overall small business goal of 23%, as I mentioned previously. Set-asides are reserved for small businesses between the micro purchase threshold and the simplified acquisition threshold. Talk about women-owned small businesses. To help provide a level playing field for women business owners, the Women-Owned Small Business, or WASB, federal contracting program allows contracting officers to set aside contracts for certified WASB and economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses in eligible industries. The federal contracting program allows contracting officers to make sole source awards to these women-owned small businesses, including economically developed ED WASBs, under specific circumstances. Sole source contracts are subject to thresholds up to $7 million for manufacturing and $4.5 million for services. The federal government's annual prime contracting goal for WASBs and Ed WASBs is 5%. Agencies can meet the 5% goal through contract awards made under the WASB federal contracting program. SBA implements and administers the WASB federal contracting program. Completing or continuing your certification for the WASB federal contracting program means your business is eligible to compete for WASB federal contracting program set-aside contracts within eligible industries. These contracts are in industries where women-owned small businesses are underrepresented. A certified WASB or Ed WASB is eligible for contract awards under other socioeconomic programs for small businesses. So if you meet other qualifications, you should register for any other contracting programs you are eligible for. Now we'll talk about the 8A Business Development Program. This program is a special program through the SBA where you can receive one-on-one assistance with federal contracting. As with the other programs, there are set-asides and sole source awards available specifically for businesses in this program. To be eligible, your business must be 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens that are socially and economically disadvantaged. This means that you must have a personal net worth of $750,000 or less, an adjusted gross income of $350,000 or less, and your total assets, including your personal residence and the value of your business, must be $6 million or less. You can participate in this program for a maximum of 9 years. Hub Zone, historically underutilized business zones. The Hub Zone program fuels small business growth in historically underutilized business zones with the goal of awarding at least 3% of federal contract dollars to Hub Zone certified companies each year. To be certified as a Hub Zone, you must be at least 51% owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen, a community development corporation, an agricultural cooperative, an Alaska Native corporation, a Native Hawaiian organization, or an Indian tribe. Your principal office must be located in a Hub Zone, and at least 35% of your employees must be located in a Hub Zone. Again, for your organization to qualify, at least 35% of your employees must be in a Hub Zone. However, this does not mean that they must be in the same Hub Zone as your business. To register for this program, you must have an account at sam.gov, and you must register and be approved through the general login system. All right, give me just a second. Let's talk about service disabled veteran owned small business program. The last contracting program that I will discuss is the service disabled veteran owned small business program. You can self-represent your business to the federal government as being owned by a service disabled veteran. Simply update the socioeconomic status section of your business profile at sam.gov. To be eligible, you must be at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more service disabled veterans. These veterans must manage day-to-day operations and make long-term decisions for the business. Currently, you are able to self-certify for this program. However, this will change in the coming months, so stay tuned for updates on this program. The Department of Veterans Affairs, which awards a large amount of contracts to veterans, set aside contracts for veterans through their Veterans First contracting program. Their program is not the same as our program. To get access to set aside Veteran Affairs contracts, your business must be verified through the Vets First verification program. Counseling, the final of our 3 C's. Free assistance with reconstructing financial records, preparing financial statements, and submitting the loan application is available from any of our SBA partners. The Small Business Administration, Small Business Development Center, SCORE, Women's Business Centers, Regional Innovation Clusters, which you all have already been familiar with today, and our Veterans Business Outreach Centers. I think that one is over in Dallas. All right. And if you're not located in Arkansas, you can find your local district office on that link. But I'm thinking that most of you on the call are probably here in Arkansas. One of the huge benefits of the SBA is that we have a large resource partner network, and all of their services are free of charge. So here's some information about contact information. The Arkansas Small Business Technology and Development Center, you already know those folks. SCORE for Northwest Arkansas, the Women's Business Center, Startup Junkie, and the Conductor, and then also Arkansas Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Finally, my contact information is here. You can reach us at 501-324-7379. My email address is richard.duda@sba.gov. And with that, I am done, and we will open it up for any questions.
All right. If anybody wants to type the questions directly in the chat box, you can do that, or if you want to send them to me, I'll be happy to read them on your behalf.
I wanted everybody to sleep.
What is the minimum credit score required by SBA?
Well, that's an open-ended question. Which program specifically are you referring to?
That's all I have. I can't elaborate. Whoever asked the question.
So there for the EIDL loan, the minimum credit score is 570. That's not for the advance, that's for the initial loan. For SBA loans in general, there is no minimum score. However, I will, and this is not written anywhere, I will let you know that most lenders are not really that excited about anything below 640, 650. And that's the rock bottom of this credit score. The reason credit score is so important is that shows the lender and anyone who extends credit, credit cards, what is the historical ability to pay on time. That's a character reference on somebody. I understand it. I've been there myself. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. Unfortunately or fortunately, credit score drives pretty much most decisions that involve access to capital. So if someone has a really low credit score, the first thing they need to do is get that credit score tidied up and cleaned up. There are a host of free resources out there for that. If a credit score is below that 640, 650 range, there needs to be some compelling documentation to support that. Sometimes the micro lenders have a little bit more leeway on credit score because they are nonprofits. The banks that are regulated by FDIC, they have very strict audit and review and credit compliance things that they have to keep up with. Sometimes the bank's internal credit policy, there's a minimum credit score. So the reason why SB doesn't have a minimum credit score in the in our guidelines is because they really give that to the lender to be able to look at the situation and assess. A long answer to a short question, but hopefully the person that asked it feels a little more empowered with all that supporting information.
Okay, thank you. Here's another one. It's brief. So if anybody wants to to elaborate, whoever asked this question, please do. Can the SBA guarantee a startup business?
The SBA does not guarantee a business. The SBA guarantees a percentage of the loan to the lender that makes the loan to the small business.
Okay. Let's see, I just have one more that's been sent to me. Who do small businesses contact for help with the ERIDL?
Okay, so for the EIDL, if they go to sba.gov, click on Pandemic Resources, there is a customer service center number there. I'm going to give you the telephone number for the customer service center. I'm going to paste that in the chat box.
Okay.
Give me just a second. I'll paste that in there. And then... All right, Mary Margaret, do you see it in there?
I do. That's 833-853-5638.
Thank you. 833-853-5638. We in the district office, we are not part of the decisioning process. If someone asks us for assistance, the best that we can do is when we have the ability to do it, because we are inundated hourly and daily with requests. We can go in and look at the situation. If it's a situation where the borrower has uploaded documents and we can't, they're not getting anywhere, we can go in and look at the notes. About the best we can do is upload the documents. If the borrower has done that and they're not getting anywhere, but we do not have any leverage. We can't contact the loan officer and say, hey, can you expedite this? So, you know, at the end of the day, I would suggest they contact the customer service number for EIDL, or they can always reach out, send us an email to the SBA district office. You can just reach the, in fact, I don't even know it. Hold on, I'll put it in the chat box because I say it every day and I don't actually, I look at the emails and everything, but I haven't memorized it yet. So we put that in the chat box here. And our email address is Arkansas. Send it to the district office, not to me personally. Send it to the district office because we have our whole staff works on these and we kind of divide and conquer. It's Arkansas_DO@SBA.gov. And we will do what we can with the resources we have available.
Okay, good. I've got one more question for you. It says, you spoke of a historical history for credit score and determination. Does a separate history begin to develop after receiving capital from SBA, or is it still tied to the same credit source that we are all used to? For example, does SBA have its own recognition system for monitoring those who have done well since borrowing?
No. Everything is based on the three major credit reporting agencies. That's Experian and I can't remember all of them, but the three major credit companies. Commercial business can build its own credit score as a commercial business credit score, but SBA doesn't have. We're not a credit reporting agency where somebody can rebuild their credit if they have an SBA loan and we report that. Now SBA does report on payments, as I understand it. SBA does report. I mean, if you're past due, the SBA does have a credit scoring tool that the lender can use. The borrower cannot do this. The lender can go in if it's a small loan, and typically those loans are under $350,000. The lender can determine whether or not they want to use the small business scoring system, but that's not something that the borrower is going to be involved with. It's just a way for a lender to basically do an SBA small loan with less paperwork if that SBSS score comes back acceptable to that lender. But it's not a credit scoring agency. And SBA contracts with a third party for access to that. So once again, a long answer to a short question.
But a thorough answer, and we thank you for that. And we thank you so much for your thorough presentation. I know it was a lot of information for everybody, so I want to remind you that it's recorded and you will have access to it if you need a refresher. And then I know that Mr. Duda mentioned that he could share his slideshows. I can share that with you as well. But
yeah, one of the other, sure. Well, sorry, one more thing I wanted to share is that if you're not on our SBA email distribution list, go to the link that I just posted into the chat box. You can get the SBA.gov updates. That's really the fastest way for us to stay in touch with everybody. And one other program that I didn't mention because I wasn't sure how much time I would have. I'm also the program manager for Emerging Leaders, and it's a 7-month executive leadership program. I know that the Conductor has a program, I think, and I heard that, as well as Startup Junkie. But our program is a 7-month CEO leadership program, and it's about 100 hours. I'm the program manager. We're graduating our 7th cohort on November 4th, but I am always actively recruiting. And the requirements for that, this last year, it may change for this year, but the business has to have been in business for at least 3 years. No fewer than at least 2 employees, and a minimum of $250,000 in gross revenues, be a for-profit business and growing. So if anyone on the call has an interest in that, or if any of the presenters would like some information, I'd be more than happy to get to that. So thank you for letting me slide in that little advertorial.
Yeah, well, thanks again. We appreciate your time. Now we're going to take a lunch break or maybe get some things done at our desk, but we're going to start right back at 2 p.m. With the Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions, Phil Plyler. And so you can leave your Zoom link on if you want, or you can hop off and jump back on it too, but don't forget to come back at 2. We look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much. All right, guys, I think it's 2 o'clock. I think it's time to get started. Welcome back. I hope you had a good lunch or break or got the project done, whatever. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Phil Plyler. He's the Director of Client Services with Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions. Phil has over 25 years of extensive experience in several industries, including automotive, medical equipment, building materials, steel pipe manufacturing, and testing. He's previously held engineering and management positions in R&D, product development, engineering, quality systems, product testing, operations, and continuous improvement. Prior to joining AMS, Phil worked with major manufacturers, including Texas Instrument, Michelin, and Hillrom. He's also been a member of a consulting engineering firm and owned and operated small business. Phil is trained in Toyota Production Systems, which is also called Lean. He led various programs, including product development teams that implemented TPS, continuous improvement, Lean methodology into the development of new projects, which involved concurrent engineering with rapid development of products while simultaneously developing manufacturing cells. Phil was also instrumental in introducing JIT and SPC into production areas, and he helped and taught courses on process improvement and product uniformity. Phil initiated and implemented a rapid prototype system that reduced turnaround times for submissions to OEM customers by over 1/3. He also led teams through value stream mapping and transformed a custom order process, resulting in shorter lead times, better communication with internal and external customers, and reduction of scrap rates. He's been awarded multiple patents, and he holds a BS, a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering, and a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Arkansas. Thank you, Phil, for being with us today. And whenever you...
There we go.
Yeah, we're ready to get started if you are.
Okay, thanks for having me. Do we have any manufacturers on the call? You know, Mary Margaret?
I'm not certain about that. I know
Okay.
that we have, well, we probably expect more people to join as we continue. We have,
Okay.
yeah.
All righty, so again, I'm Phil Plyler. I don't know where you got that long list of stuff I did. That was more than I gave you. So who we are, if you want to go ahead and go to the first slide there, the next slide.
Phil, this is Matthew Shreve. Are you wanting to share your screen, or are you wanting us to pull up your slides for you?
I thought y'all were gonna do, I can do is share my screen, I think, if I can remember how to do it.
Yes, sir. It's the share button on your bottom bar down there next to participants. And then you'll just select either your PowerPoint or the screen that you have that on.
Say again, share button where?
It should be on the black bar at the bottom, you know, where it says mute, start video, security, participants.
Oh, okay,
etc.
okay.
And you just click the share button there. And then it should pop up a window where you can select your screen or select the program that you're wanting to view. And you'll just select the one that shows your, are you using PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'm just gonna use a quick PowerPoint.
Yeah, so the PowerPoint, do you already have it pulled up?
Yes. So,
Do you see the open window that allows you to select a screen? Give me 1 second, Phil. I'm going to pull it up for you.
okay.
apologize. Phil, give me just a second. It's loading for me.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so who we are, we're Arkansas Manufacturing Solutions. This just talks about the different things that we offer in our training. I'm gonna go to the next. You gonna do it there for me? Okay, so we became part of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, AEDC, about 6-7 years ago, I guess. But we've been in Arkansas since 1988. There's one of us in every state plus Puerto Rico, and we are partially funded through the Department of Commerce, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And they're the guys that own the atomic clock and developed it and own it, and they get to determine how long an inch is, things like that. So it's a pretty prestigious group to be part of. So on this slide here down at the bottom, oh, that's okay. On the bottom, it shows what we do. In the last 5 years, we've increased and retained sales for manufacturers in Arkansas by $836 million, helped them with $16 million in cost savings, and we were part of $152 million in client capital investment, and over 7,000 jobs created and retained. And who we are, this is the folks here in it. We used to have a joke around here that you had to be gray or bald or both to get in our group. The two on the bottom, on the outside, Candy and Tim, are our latest additions. Tim's up there along with Bill Krause and Keith Gamble there at the Delta Center in ASU. But part of that reason is that we all have 25 or more years of experience in manufacturing before we can take this job. Go to the next one. What sets us apart? We're local, we're in the state, so we're helping a company. Our main job is to help that manufacturer and help them stay in business and grow within the state and hire more people. Again, the private sector, all of us have private sector experience, so we've all been there. We've all been there and gotten the late night phone calls when something goes down in a plant, so we know that. The partnerships, that's like the NIST. We have access to theoretically 5,000 scientists at the national level that we can tap into. And I've actually been able to do that for a few clients here lately. And the next one. So I'll give you our basic programs. We offer training. That's not all we do, but we do offer training. And it's a little bit of a unique way of doing it, but just go over the subject matter first. First of all, leadership, that's a very common one. Keith up there at Jonesboro and Candy down here in Little Rock. They have some great leadership team building classes, and that's something that is very helpful. I highly suggest asking about it if you like. Next one. Operational excellence. We are all things lean. Anything Toyota production system we're heavily involved with. Some of you may have been to a Lean 101 class that we've done. I think someone said we've done close to 1,000 of them now. And we also, the latest one is, not the latest one, the most popular one here lately is Toyota Kata. And that's something that we're, Bill Krause on the middle of the picture before. Bill is a world-class instructor for that. He's been part of the research, and he's just an excellent provider for that. And we offer a series of classes in there. And the next one, advanced manufacturing. This is like industry 4.0. This is a growing one, but again, we're not the super high tech resources ourselves, but our job here is to connect people with it if it's not something that we have the expertise on it. The next one. And family business advisor. This is one where we're helping the numbers on businesses passing through family members are they're horrible. The less than 40% are still there after 5 years. And I think by the time you get to the 4th generation, it's less than 1%. Having said that, though, in the next 5 years, well over half of all business owners have plans to transition out of their business. And the time to start planning for that is usually 5 to 10 years before, or even further if they can. And we get a lot of phone calls from folks that want to retire like next year. And we help them get their business set up to do that because we want the business to continue on. We are helping them sell it, but we're also going to be helping the new owners, hopefully. And we've got, that's something that is, I do a lot for small businesses. It wasn't necessarily about plan, but that's who seems to be needing it the most. Let's say people with less than 10 people on their staff. So the next one. And Export Tech, this is something Rudy Ortiz has been running for a while. He's on the District Export Council, which is every state has one of those as well. And he's actually very active at the national level as well. And this is a great program that can help you get into exporting if you're not. I think it's 95% of all potential customers in the world are outside of the US. And he has this class that he only meets 4 times over a period of 3 months. And what the companies get out of it is just incredible. We've got one company here that started with it about 8 or 9 years ago, and they're selling to 16 countries now that they've never thought about before taking this class. The class actually helps you identify who in the world would desire your products, would want your products. And so anyway, that's a course that's offered right now. I think it's typically offered once a year in Little Rock, and then we've done one in Northwest, and I think he's talked about trying to do one in Northeast Arkansas. And the next one. So this is one of the things that if you're a manufacturer, you need to be using this program. This is a technology transfer assistance grant. If you're doing some sort of a research project for like an SBIR, and that's a Small Business Innovation Research Program, if you know what that is, then you probably know about PTACs. But for manufacturers, it basically is to help you with a $5,000 project where you need an outside third-party consultant. And effectively, it lets your $1,250 get you $5,000 worth of consulting to the consultant of your choice. And you can do that twice the state fiscal year. So effectively, in 12 months, you can put up $2,500 and get $10,000 worth of consulting out of it. So it's a really good deal. And that's one I would encourage you to go look at. Got the website down there, but you can also give me a call and I can walk you through it. And go to the next one. This is totally unrelated to our group. It's not part of us. They are a state agency as well. But if you have, this is whether you're a manufacturer or not, if you've got training for your people, you or your people, and you need to look at this before you have the training. All these programs are incentives rather than rewards. So you need to do the applications beforehand. Both the TTAC I talked about before, as well as this one, they meet every 2 weeks on a rolling basis. So they're really fast turnaround. But this will cover 50% of just about all training. And if you're a small Arkansas-based company, you'll likely get 75%. Or if it's technical training, the state will reimburse 75% of your training cost. And this is not one that we do, but again, we work with these folks closely. And if you're a manufacturer, I can help you with your grant writing. And that's one more slide, I think. And that's basically how you get hold of us. If you're interested, I've tried to keep this intentionally short because I wanted to make sure if there's any questions, we could talk about that. So, are there any questions?
Open up the chat if anybody has any questions.
That's what I'd rather do, is just talk about this stuff and any particular type of situation.
I've got one. Is there a cost for AMS to come to my manufacturing company and offer suggestions on improving workforce?
For improving the workforce, there's not a cost for us to come out. We do have some things by law. By taking federal money, we have to charge for some of our services. But as far as getting us out there, just to talk to you and make some suggestions, no, there's not a cost for that.
So do you have some of the costs listed online, or would they just need to call and speak to somebody about that?
Probably need to call, because usually when we do get calls, it usually end up giving something. If we do end up doing training there, we do different training than what they thought they wanted. There's either other steps to it, and it just depends on what their time is and how big they are, how many people they have. But we're extremely affordable. I mean, we're very, very affordable, and especially for the value you get. I mean, these trainers that we have are just incredible.
Here's another one. Does AEDC AMS have a program for a small business to be able to purchase equipment for an expansion?
I wish we did. We do not have that. We can help you. People have used PTAC, small businesses have used PTACs to help them create a prospectus to take to the bank. It's like a prospectus where you might be issuing stock. This is where you go to the bank and take this. And we've had really good luck with small companies getting both in private investors as well as various bank loans. And so that's where we can help you there. Unfortunately, we don't have money for equipment usually. Anything else?
Just give me some time for send something else to me. I think that's what we have. That's all we have. We truly appreciate your time today.
Sure. I just recommend that if you've got a question or you think there's something we might be able to help you with, give us a call. One thing I didn't mention is that during all this, the pandemic and all of the supply chain issues, one thing we're doing a lot of is matchmaking. If you're having trouble getting something, there's a good chance we know someone in Arkansas that can supply it for you or can make it. And if that doesn't work, then we can actually list it at the national level. And I've actually been successful getting just recently. We've always had this program, but it's just recently been really active in bringing Arkansas businesses, bringing them business from out of state in the same way. So again, if you got a question, just give us a call.
We will, and thank you so much for your time. I think we have Whitney Horton from the Small Business Technology Development Center next. Why don't we take a quick coffee break and be back here to start like at 2:25, and maybe if Whitney's on, we can join a little bit earlier. So it's just a quick 5-minute break. I want to introduce Whitney Horton to everybody. We're glad she's here today. She is with the Small Business Technology Development Center, or ASBTDC. And I still have to say that acronym very slowly and deliberately, even though the Delta Center shares office space with members of the ASBTDC Northeast Arkansas team. But we're happy to have Whitney with us. She works out of ASBTDC office in Little Rock, and she serves as the Strategic Partnerships Manager. And she joined ASBTDC staff in 2009. She was a business consultant for 8 years. In 2019, she began overseeing events, special projects, and partnerships for ASBTDC. You guys, that's just like it's a tongue twister. Yeah,
a mouthful.
She has a bachelor's degree in marketing, and she completed her master's of business administration at UALR in 2013. She's a certified Kaufman Fast Track New Venture Facilitator. In 2018, she was recognized as a state star by America's SBDC. So welcome, Whitney. Thank you for joining us, and we are ready whenever you are.
Absolutely. Well, as I start to share my screen, I'm just noticing with my hair being curly today versus my headshot there that I probably should have done a little bit more of the straightening today. Let me pull
I don't
this.
know. I always wanted curly hair.
Oh,
Good that you can do both.
there's some days that, you know, you look like Mufasa, and there's some days it works out. So, but thank you so much, Mary Margaret. I'm thrilled that we're all finally together for this event. And you know, everything over the past, I feel like I've lost count. Is it 18 months, 19 months? Where are we at in this whole COVID relief and dealing with COVID? And I'm just very excited to be here to share with all of you a little bit about the ASBTDC. You can tell I've worked here for almost 12 years because the acronym just kind of rolls off of my tongue. I always kind of joke too, when you add UALR in front of it, I feel like we're going to cover almost the entire alphabet just with our organization name. But thank you so much again for that very warm welcome. I know y'all been hearing from a lot of the resource partners, and I see a lot of very familiar names as I'm scrolling through who all is here. So to all of you that I know, hello, please don't judge my hair because you've seen me in person. But just a little bit about the ASBTDC, you know, as it says here, we are a university-based economic development program that, and really at the end of the day, kind of our mission is we are just here to assist anyone that has that entrepreneurial spirit that is looking to do something for themselves or create generational wealth, whatever that may look like for themselves here in the state of Arkansas. And it says they're both new and experienced. I'll get into it a multitude of times as I talk here, but we work with people that just, you could walk in and just have an idea and you have no idea what those next steps are because what entrepreneurs care about is their craft and getting that out into the world. But we're here to also help them really think through that business side, that how do we think about the success? Throughout COVID, pre-COVID, we actually had 8 locations throughout the state. We are just about, hopefully by the end of 2021, we are going to be at 11 offices throughout the state. And as you can see here from the map, we cover the entire state. You know, if you're sitting here and going, well, which office do I refer to? Based on whatever county you are located at in the state, that is which office you would reach out to. And sometimes people say, but why do I have to work with, you know, a certain one or this and that? One thing I very much pride ourselves on as an organization is, you know, all of us that work here in Little Rock, you know, for example, you know, these are our communities, you know, the Little Rock community, the North Little Rock, Pulaski County, Saline County. These are our surrounding communities. We know the people, we see them, we eat dinner with them. We know what coffee shops people are talking about. We know the schools, you know, we know those things. And we want you to be able to talk with consultants and people in the office that are familiar with your community, because Arkansas is really a kind of a special place because we have very metropolitan areas, but we also have very rural areas. We have there's just a difference across the state, and we want to be able to talk with you, you know, on your level and understanding that I'm going to be driving through and getting coffee probably from the coffee shop in your community. And I know, and I may know the people that actually have worked there. So as you can see here, I will definitely send this over, or Mary Margaret actually already has it. And so she is free to share this presentation with all of y'all after the fact, so that you can just kind of get a run back for it and see which offices would be in the communities that you work with, and say, hey, you need to call the UALR office or the HSU office or the ASU office, whichever one it may be. If you ever have questions about which one you should call, you can definitely just call the lead center and we'll get you matched up with the appropriate office. So all of that to say, what do we do on a daily basis? Well, we do. I will say, I feel like we do a lot. One of the core things that comes from the ASBTDC services is our free and confidential business consulting. As you can imagine, especially with anybody that has been here to help any sort of entrepreneur in the past year and a half, almost 2 years at this point, we have been very, very busy. But we work with people at a ready stage, a starting stage, and a growth stage. So those ready type of entrepreneurs are, I have this idea, but I legitimately have no idea what to do next. And they're kind of exploring entrepreneurship in a way. What is that lifestyle like? What is that going to do to my personal time? What are those little things I need to be considering about before I jump off into this venture? So we want to talk with everybody in that stage of thinking about this journey. Those that are a little bit further down the road and are like, okay, I'm definitely ready to start. This is really where a lot of our core consulting starts coming in. We are here to, number one, something that's not listed on the slide, again, that I pride ourselves on, and when I consulted for almost 10 years, was talking about the feasibility of any business idea for your particular community. And it's not looking at, is this business idea a good business idea or a bad one? It's much more of that feasibility of, let's look at the location. Let's look at your competition. Let's look at, are there enough customers in your target area that will actually support the business, that this will turn into a business and not just a part-time, hobby that breaks even. We're very honest consultants, because at the end of the day, we never want somebody to go through this entire process, possibly borrow money from friends and family, get into a loan situation, and haven't fully thought it through. So with the consulting, we go through that feasibility discussion. You can come in, we will help you write your business plan. We will not write it for you, because at the end of the day, this is your business and we want you to feel empowered by it. When I was consulting, I would always say, we kind of help you with the brain dump, like getting all of the things out of your head and down on paper, because sometimes in their head, it sounds fantastic. Like, this is the best idea ever. But then you get it down on paper and it's like, what was I thinking? So we'll help you with that brain dump, but then we'll also help you wordsmith it. And a little bit later, I can show you some of the tools that we have available for no fee on our website to help you do this. So help you write that business plan. I'll get into market research in a minute. Help you do your financial data that you've got to, if you have to reach out for any sort of funding, what do you need to have prepared to be able to present to those lenders or potentially investors? Even more so, what do you need to learn to feel empowered to have those conversations with those lenders? We don't want to just turn you over with a cash flow statement and say, here, give that to the lender. We want our entrepreneurs that come through our office and our clients to really understand, what do these numbers mean, to where when they're a little bit further on down the road, they can do some of it themselves. Walking them through what are all the different financing options. Is it going to your local lender or your bank? Is it micro lending because you don't need quite as much? Is it SBA financing? What might be the best option and the best fit for you and your personal financial situation? Again, with the consulting, we will sit there and work with anyone on, how do we do the online marketing, which is obviously a huge thing right now because of COVID, but something we're already starting to see and get questions about are from our traditional brick and mortar clients that have been in business for a while, reaching out and saying, how do I now compete with all of the online entrepreneurs? Because everyone has gotten so accustomed to just bring it to my door because, we don't need to be around people. So working through, is online the best thing for you, or is it traditional? And really, one of the questions I always ask was, what does your, I'm going to say community probably about 1,000 times, but that's also part of my background. But looking at which one of these is the best option for your particular customers. Because there are some areas of the state that you can make a Facebook post and, you're good to go. There's certain areas that still want you to print out flyers and bring them to the bank and put them on the cork board so that Friday, when everyone cashes their check, they see it. So we're here to kind of work through that with you too. A lot of people think that we are only here to help with brand new starting, have never been in business before type of clients, which is not true. I have some clients that have been in business for almost 10 years now, and they still call me for questions about, I'm looking to expand into another city. Can we do some more research to figure out which one is the best fit? So we work with those established businesses as well. Management questions, and something that actually came out of the whole pandemic was we actually created specialty services here out of our office. So within our consulting, we can pretty much talk to you about anything. Two key things that we do not consult on are legal issues, because we're not lawyers, and really in-depth tax questions because we're not CPAs. And then, some things that we kept starting to see over the past couple of years actually were those HR questions are so specific to each company. We couldn't really get into the weeds with that. So with specialty services, we actually contract out with other small businesses that have these specific expertise. And once you go through some of the consulting, you possibly may be able to work with some of these specialty service contractors who we have CPAs, we have HR experts, we have social media and marketing experts, you name it, and we keep trying to grow the list. So all of that to say, within business consulting, besides legal questions and tax questions, we really probably are here to service anybody in the state. I keep mentioning the market research. Along with the consulting, we have very in-depth research services that we are able to provide our clients. Now, the one caveat with this is we never want this to be the first stop for any client, because we need to, as consultants, but also those as the entrepreneurs, need to understand a little bit more about their business before we just dive off into the research. The market research is also no fee with consulting, but we want to make sure that we know exactly what specific questions we're wanting to ask before we get into that. And really, we want to have that conversation with the client so that they also understand who their actual potential customer is, because I always tell this story. So any of y'all that have ever seen me run my mouth on presentations before, but I had a client years ago that said, well, everybody is going to be my customer. And I said, really? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, what if you sold toilet paper? And she was like, well, yeah, everybody uses toilet paper. And at the time I said, well, my 6-month-old he doesn't use toilet paper, so he's actually not in your target market. We've got to narrow this down just a little bit more. And that joke became a little bit less funny earlier last year with the toilet paper shortage. But at the end of the day, just really understanding what are those age brackets? How much education do they have? Where do they live? How far are they willing to drive for something? Do they prefer to actually have something delivered to their home? Do they get their information online? Are they comfortable with that? All of those type of questions is what we put into this research to be able to provide to our clients. Now, the thing that I really oversee in my new role, my last 2 years now, is really looking at the educational programming that we're able to provide anyone that is already in business or thinking about it or navigating COVID, for example. So we have always done seminars and different types of events on a variety of different topics so that we're able to provide that educational content. We are still, at the very least, through the end of 2021, out of our particular lead center here in Little Rock, we're doing everything virtual still. So it's all webinars. We do try to be very respectful and keep them at an hour because everybody's a little bit zoomed out. But all of the topics will range from just how to start a business to, business planning, a variety of different marketing topics. If there's anything relevant with current funding, when COVID first hit, all of that EIDL and the PPP, we were turning those out within about 3 days just to get that information to the public as quickly as possible. Moving into next year, a lot of here at the Lead Center, but also our regional offices, we're going to start being a little bit more hybrid. So we'll still have webinars because they've actually, as annoyed as with Zoom, I think some of us are, they've actually been really great because you don't have to leave your business. People can listen to it later because they're recorded, and we want that information just to be out there. But I know we all miss being in person. I'm trying to go to as many luncheons as possible right now because I'm just so excited to see people. So we listen to the small business community, and if we don't know the specific answer, we either try to find a speaker that's an expert that can speak to that specifically, or we're a little bit research nerds around this network, and so we will learn everything we can about it and present it ourselves. So we have a lot of things that happen every month, but also we look for those nuggets of this is what's coming. And myself and Dimitri, that also works on my team, we try to also look at what's happening in other states that is starting to trend, and maybe we can go ahead and bring that down to Arkansas so that we start getting people a little bit ahead of the ball. All right, so just a couple of things for resources that you can find at our website, which I will drop all of this information in the chat, and you can see there our website is asbtdc.org. We have tons of free resources available for anyone to use. One thing I did not mention at the beginning is we are an organization that is here to work with the consulting, specifically with for-profit businesses. So nonprofits, because of our restrictions, we can't work consulting wise with nonprofits, but our website and our trainings are open to all. So please let anyone in your areas know about all of this. One thing I love that we have on the website, because I'm a checklist person, I still have a paper planner. I love just making lists and being able to cross them off. It gives me great joy. Are our ebooks that we have here. So you can see right there in the middle, this license, permit, and tax requirements is a key one for a lot of people looking to get into entrepreneurship. It walks you through all of the basics, and at the end, there's a checklist, and you can know exactly where you're at in the process. The blue, the light blue, funding your small business, that is there to walk you through. These are all of the potential funding opportunities that you, as a small business owner, could possibly have. And it goes all the way from traditional lending to crowdfunding and kind of maps all of that out. And then I think Kim is talking after me, but we also talk or work closely with with Arkansas, the PTAC, excuse me, with sending anybody that's looking for the opportunities with selling to the government and letting them understand you have to have all of these things in place before you can even work with them. They are fantastic. I can't remember if she was before or if she's coming after. If she was before, I know y'all agree with me. If she's after, y'all are in for a treat. Again, I mentioned the business planning a little bit earlier. We have a to the point business plan outline available on our website. It takes you through just the basics of what need to be in that business plan. We developed this with lenders from across the state. Oh goodness, I did something to my screen. Sorry, guys. Goodness, to where you're able to just walk through the basics and get those things down on paper. And I apologize again. This is all of my contact information. Please call me, email me, reach out to us anytime.
Thanks so much for that, Whitney. That was very, very helpful. I have one question, and then if anybody else out there has some questions, please put them in the chat. Can you help clients find grant money?
Oh, there it is. Well, with the grants, we, since we work a lot with for-profit businesses, we don't see a lot of grants available for them. A lot of the grants that are out there are for our nonprofits that are working with universities or in the medical field or educational. So we really don't see very many of them.
I have one more question that just came. Do you find that more rural cities or urban cities tend to ask for more assistance from ASBTDC, or is it a mix? Do you have any aims on targeting rural communities specifically?
That is a fantastic question. Honestly, I would say that since we're a statewide network and we cover every county, I would say we see it really from everybody. I do complete transparency. My entire career here has been here in the Lead Center in Little Rock. And so I may have a little bit of a skewed perspective because I have a lot of the metropolitan Central Arkansas type of focus. That would be really interesting to talk to some of my regional office directors about. But I do know the entire time that I've been here, no office has ever been not busy. I would definitely say that it's just different questions and different needs that we are reached out for depending on what office and what part of the state they're in. But at one point before we did expanding and I was no longer consulting, Helena and West Helena were still in our territory for the Lead Center, and I loved going to Phillips County. But there was a gentleman that I met with that day, and this really changed the trajectory of me when I was consulting, because I said something to him about, and you as an entrepreneur, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm just trying to put food on the table." And I said, "No, but but you're doing something for you. You're creating this. This is yours. And so just that's an example of, I think the conversations are just a little bit different, and maybe the questions and whatever type of assistance it is. I hope that answered the question. Sound like I'm babbling just a little bit, but I would say it's pretty 50-50.
Okay, well, great. Got one more. A lot of high schools are partnering with organizations to promote life after schooling. Some of these even pitch and should pitch options that are not always college driven. Does ASBTDC plan to develop a program or speak with high school graduates about starting their own businesses? I ask this because of the popularity and boom of YouTube and other platforms that become a business.
Will you say that one more time?
I sure will. I may have butchered it a little bit.
Every time I come and present, I get a new question.
Well, sure. I don't mind at all. A lot of high schools are partnering with organizations to promote life after schooling. Some of these even pitch and should pitch options that aren't always college driven. Does ASBTDC plan to develop a program or speak with high school graduates about starting their own businesses? I ask this because of the popularity and boom of YouTube and other platforms that become a business.
That is a fantastic question. And thank you for reading through all of that for a second time. We really, with our directives for the funding that we receive to do what we do, there's not as much on for youth or high school age type of entrepreneurship driven activities. However, I will say that we do participate in, if there's a business plan competition, or, you know, if someone calls me and says, hey, can you come speak to this group of students? I'm more than happy to go and do it. So we just have to be a little bit careful with our time.
Okay, understood. Well, thank you. Thank you for talking to us, and I hope your allergies get better.
Oh my gosh, I know it's so bad. I've been great all day, and then I start talking.
Well, I have fall allergies, so I can definitely empathize. Okay, I see. One more, Whitney. So, grab a swig of water. It says, I'd like to further ask her something to clarify.
Sure.
Go ahead, unless you want to type it here for me.
Hey, Whitney, it's me, Matthew Shreve. We spoke
Hi.
earlier when you came in. I was actually the one that asked about the YouTube and high schools as well. The reason I pose that is, you know, just because social media and other platforms are becoming so popular to be on, some high school students, you know, may start a YouTube channel that, you know, either through their gaming or through just, you know, casual interest. And it does end up exploding. And then, you know, YouTube starts offering them deals and they start getting paid by YouTube as well. That's why I was asking, just to, you know, that seems like something that our ASBTDC could do, because, you know, they do essentially become small businesses right out of high school in that sense, because they have to develop their name, they have to develop their company as well by, you know, partnering with YouTube. So just, you know, just something. Go ahead.
And they need to protect themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And make good business decisions from it. I mean, I have a 6.5-year-old and he watches all the Minecraft videos on YouTube right now and wants to start his own channel and is asking me to get him a computer.
Right.
Which I'm sure y'all can imagine what my answer was. But no, I totally see the value in it. And I think it is a conversation that, while historically maybe a lot of the entrepreneurial like service organizations have not focused on in the past, we have now seen over almost the past 2 years just how much people could do at home and how much content they could create and how good this younger generation, and it pains me to say younger generation because I still feel like I'm about 22, how creative and fantastic they are at marketing, but they need
Right.
to be smart about it and
Mhm.
understand that you are now creating a business. So I totally see the value in that, and am probably going to go over and make a note about it as something that we can possibly do, because we do a lot with a lot of the groups and the different colleges on our particular university campuses.
Mhm.
They may be over in the arts, or they may be in education, or whatever it may be, whichever college section of the campus. But we want them to always understand there's an opportunity for an entrepreneurial side from that.
Right.
And so we try to work with them too. But to your point, they wouldn't be on the campus because they
Well,
may
and
not
and
go.
and, so,
They may
and
not go
some
the university route.
right. Well, and sometimes they do, and that's kind of where I was pointing it out, because I have a couple of friends who try to start up their own channels, and they don't really expect the boom, and so they're still going to college. They still have college plans, and then because of that, quick success, they tend to either leave college or realize that they could do elsewhere. So just I was just curious about that, because I'd like our younger generations, as you put it, just to start knowing what are their options, how can they take care of themselves, etc., because that can be really scary, even for a new college student too. What is the right decision, especially for you. So
Yeah.
just
Well,
but I thank you for talking with me.
absolutely. And hey, you got my email now. I would love to we could set up a time to talk even more, because I think that's a really great point.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Thanks again, Whitney. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Sorry that my sinuses kept interrupting me a little bit to everyone on this call. They just won't go away.
Perfectly understood. Last but not least, I am very happy to welcome Timothy Hicks. Tim serves as a procurement counselor with the Arkansas Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is known as PTAC. He is going to give us some insight on how to best compete for government contracts. And here's a little bit more about Tim. He is originally from Laurel Hill, North Carolina. He joined the University of Arkansas Cooperative Extension Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC, as a procurement counselor in July 2019. He holds Associates of Applied Science degrees in Industrial Security and Personnel Management from the Community College of the Air Force, a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice Administration from Park University, and a Master of Science degree in Operations Management from the University of Arkansas College of Engineering. Tim served 21 years in the United States Air Force as a recruiter and as a security forces training superintendent. Since retiring from the Air Force, he has held positions with the Arkansas Department of Corrections, Jacksonville Police Department, Cabot Public Schools, Arkansas National Guard Youth Challenge Program, the Army National Guard Professional Education Center, the Arkansas Department of Career Education, the Dash Institute, International Church Planters, and the Arkansas Office of State Procurement before coming to the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. His awards include Vendor of the Year from the Arkansas Association of Chief of Police, Leadership Academy Honor Graduate, and several public speaking awards. He has held positions as a board member and president of the new and related division of the Arkansas Association of Career and Technical Education. He has served as the Arkansas Skills USA State Director for the Division of Career and Technical Education and the Arkansas State Sponsor for the National Center for Construction Education and Research Training. Welcome, Tim. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure you can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to thank everyone for letting us be a part of the training today. We're going to talk about government contracts, how to find and compete for them. We have a very short amount of time, so I'll get started, but hopefully if I don't answer all your questions, then we'll pick a little bit of curiosity for some questions at the end. So the first thing is we have 3 locations to serve you as a small business. We have our main location at 2301 South University. And at that location, myself and Liz Russell, we cover the central, the southwest, and the southeast. So we would be able to assist you if you're from those areas of the state of Arkansas. Then also we have a satellite center at the Shoemaker Center for Global Business Development in Bentonville. That position is now vacant. So if you have some experience in procurement and you would like to apply, we would very much like to have you as a part of the PTAC team. We also have a location that covers the Northeast, and that is out of Newport, Deborah Garcia, and she would be more than happy to help you and assist you as a small business if you're located in that Northeast quadrant of the state. So the Arkansas PTAC offers many resources. We have a website, we're on LinkedIn, we do Facebook, we have a monthly newsletter. We also offer a unique training opportunity if you become a PTAC client. We have an agreement with an organization called Govology. And Govology is an excellent center for all things federal contracting, live webinars, pre-recorded trainings. And again, as a PTAC client, you can take as many of those courses as you like for free. Those courses average anywhere from $75 to $150. So that's an excellent resource for you if you become a PTAC client. So I have a picture of Agnes Ann, and Agnes Ann is very patient and persistent. And the reason I have her up there is we're talking about how to locate government contracts. Well, what does Agnes Ann have to do with that? Well, what I do is here at the house, if one of the toys becomes lost, we have 3 dogs. Well, if we can't find the toy, all I do is tell Agnes Ann to go look for it. She approaches that in 2 ways. Number 1, Agnes Ann looks for where the ball or the toy should be. But then if she can't find it in the normal places, then she starts looking where that ball or that toy might be. You have to take the same approach with government contracts. There's locations where those opportunities are going to be publicized on public forums, but there's also opportunities you're going to have to look in other places that aren't so obvious. So as we begin, we'll start out by talking about federal contracts. So while we're on the subject of federal contracts, one of the things that has caused a lot of curiosity, and just want to give you a very brief timeline so far as the vaccine mandate and federal opportunities. On September the 9th, the executive order was given by President Joe Biden. On October the 15th, you started to see some of that vaccine mandate language in renewals or extensions of federal contracts. November the 14th, the expectation is that the language so far as a vaccine mandate will be in all new contracts where that mandate applies. And then December the 8th is really V-Day for the federal government, and that is where those vaccination requirements go into effect, and everyone should be vaccinated that mandate applies to so far as federal contracts. So there's more to come. There's a lot of information out there, but I encourage you to wait until pretty much the dust settles, and then you'll be able to find out if it would affect you if you seek federal opportunities. So where would you go to find federal contracts? You go to a website called sam.gov. This is what it looks like. And a couple of things, this is where you would register. That's one of the other things you can do to register as a federal contractor. But if you want to find bid opportunities or solicitations, then you're going to go to the search bar, which is there by the arrow. Once you click on that search bar, your window is going to look something like this. And then in the search, the main search box right there, you can put in a term, or if you have a solicitation number. You're also going to have some other filters below that are going to allow you to look for solicitations in the state of Arkansas, solicitations for a particular, what we would call a NAICS code. And NAICS or NIAC simply stands for the North American Industry Classification System Code. And that's a 6-digit number that identifies your product or your service to the federal government. Again, if you need more information about any of the terminology or any of the things that I go over today, again, we have several PTAC counselors that would be happy to help you. Once you find a particular solicitation or bid, it's going to look like this. And even though you don't see a traditional hyperlink so far as underlined, R430 unarmed security guards for Central Arkansas Veterans Healthcare, that's a current solicitation. It is out right now. That's going to be a set aside for a service disabled veteran owned small business. And again, what you do is you click on that link, and then you're going to be able to drill down and actually see all the information about that solicitation, about that bid. Then you'll also be able to see all the individual documents that pertain to that bid. And again, if you have any questions, if you want to review that solicitation as you consider putting forth a proposal, we're absolutely happy to do that. And then also, if you decide to submit a proposal, then the PTAC can review that with you, make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Those are some of the things that we can do for you as you navigate those contracts, those solicitations. We'd be more than happy to help you. So far as state contracts, it's a little bit unusual right now, and it started back in the early spring. The state of Arkansas, as far as looking for contract opportunities, we actually have a split search that you need to do. And this is the traditional or the legacy site to look for bids. If you see Mr. Armstrong's picture, you will know you're in the right place. And then you'll see a blue tab with hand shaking, which is titled Bid Opportunities. You click on that. Now, as they transition between the legacy or the old site and the new site, which we'll discuss in a moment, you'll see the number of bids. There's not very many. And you also see, when you look at that list of 5 bids, you see Sourcewell and you see National Park College. A Sourcewell is a national cooperative buying organization. So if you want to know more about cooperatives, there's Sourcewell, there's NASPO Value Point, there's Tips USA. They're unique opportunities you might be interested in. And if you need more information about cooperatives, then again, we would be happy to discuss those with you. But what would happen if you were interested in the software services bid? You're going to look over to your right, MP-22-002. You click on that, and then it's actually going to take you into the bid. It'll give some basic information. It'll give you the buyer's email. It'll give you the opening date and time. And then as you see on the screen, you will have several documents associated with the bid. And then you can click on those. Those documents could be a PDF, could be an Excel product, could be a Word document. But those are the documents associated with this particular bid. So the other site, the newer site that actually came online in early spring is called RBuy. And RBuy is the new e-procurement system for the state of Arkansas. RBuy is supposed to bring together all those elements that were somewhat cumbersome in the past. So this is going to be a one-stop shop if you want to do business with the state of Arkansas. So I can't encourage you enough, if you want to do business with the state of Arkansas, if you want to have opportunity or have the opportunity to respond to bids and solicitations, go to this website. If you'll look in the upper corner, you'll see a blue tab that says register. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. So I encourage you to do that now so you'll be prepared for the future. So if you come to this website in order to see current opportunities, you see in the center section towards the bottom of the screen, public bulletins. You would click on that. That's going to take you to a little bit further down the page to supplier activities. And there's your open bids. So you can browse the open bid opportunities. When you click on that, it's going to take you to the list of current bids as you see on your screen. If you want to look at an individual bid, you simply click on the link. In this case, you have the S20 that I have the arrow pointed to. You click on that link. It's going to take you into another screen where you see the overall, pretty much like the federal system also. You see an overview of the bid, what the mechanics are, what the bid opening date, who the buyer is. But what you want to look at probably next after you review the general information is, if you look, it's going to have links to all the documentation that's going to be associated with that bid. So one of the things that I would warn you about is this. In the past, when you responded to a solicitation or bid with the state of Arkansas, often that was by a mechanical means. And what I mean is you would use UPS, FedEx, you would deliver your bid in person. But with ARBuy, You may have to upload documents, but you're actually going to submit everything through the RBI system to include your quote or your bid response so far as a price sheet. I just wanted to use the city of Jonesboro, kind of something in the Northeast region. So the city of Jonesboro, so far as looking or finding contracts. So you would go to the Jonesboro website. As you see in the upper part of the screen, there's a business tab. So you would click on that. That's going to take you to this screen. And as you can see, the first arrow, it says sign up. Not all systems, but some systems you want to sign up. And I know in other states, you may have to sign up or register as a vendor before you can even see a bid or solicitation. So I encourage you with each website, just kind of review it to see what the requirements are. And then if you look in the lower part of the screen, you'll see the arrow pointing to the 5 bids. So if you drill down, you're actually going to start to go into the bids, and then you're going to see the individual bids and related documents. So again, you would click on the individual documents or the individual documents related to that particular bid. And again, the Arkansas PTAC can help you review those bids, what the requirements are, the musts and the shalls, the things that you're going to need to respond to be able to have an opportunity to be the awardee for those contracts. So what's it going to take? So those are it's just a general overview of how you can locate opportunities, solicitations, and bids. But what happens, when you do find something? So what are the things that you're going to need to do? Well, basically, we can sum it up with 4 pillars of success. 2 are probably very familiar to you if you've been in government contract, either locally, state level, local level. Okay, responsive. What does it mean to be responsive? Responsive simply means this: when you're reviewing a bid or a solicitation, they're going to have certain items, documents, cost quotes. You're going to have to give them back in your bid response or your bid proposal. You have to give them back everything they asked for. A good rule of thumb is don't give them more than they asked for. Don't give them less than they asked for. Give them exactly what they asked for and give it back to them in the mode or method that they requested. Again, some bids will be very, very detailed. You have to provide the proposal in a certain format or a certain chart. It may have to be tabbed. So again, responsive means that when you responded to the bid, you gave the buyer or the organization or the entity, whoever that might be, you gave them the documentation that they requested. Well, if you're responsive, then the next thing you need to think about is, are you responsible? Now, responsible is simply this: whatever you bid on, product or service, are you able to deliver that? And not only are you able to deliver it, but can you deliver it in the same method that it was required in the requirements of the bid language? Again, you have to give them back what they asked for, product or service, but you have to give it back to them in the manner in which they prescribed. If they gave you a certain date that an area has to be clean, for instance, janitorial service, well, then you can't arbitrarily change those requirements and do it on a different day or a different time. You have to be responsible. You have to give them exactly 100% what they asked for, how they asked for it, when they asked for it. Otherwise, you're going to have some issues where they may document poor performance so far as what you do or what you provided as a vendor. The other 2 are more subjective. Again, reflective. What does it mean to be reflective? Often as you look at a solicitation or a bid, the bottom line is this: you have to think things through. You don't want to respond too quickly. Give you an example. We've had people or clients that unfortunately they were the awardee. So why do I say unfortunately? And they were actually the awardee. Once they were awarded the contract and they actually read the requirements, then they suddenly discovered they couldn't be responsible. They responded with the appropriate documents, but they didn't read the individual requirements of how that product or service was going to be provided. So they will have to default and they will have to go back and say, hey, I cannot perform the requirements of the contract. So always be thorough in your reflection, your thinking. And again, as you solicit your proposals, you're going to hear no. Sometimes you won't be the awardee. So go back. Is there anything you could have done differently in your response? Is there any information that you didn't provide that you should have? And in some cases, you can also get some feedback from the organization, whether that's the federal, state, or the local government. Last but not least, for those pillars of success, you have to be resilient. You know, the first time someone says no, or the first time something goes wrong, or the first time, you know, that it's not exactly how you imagined it. Listen, you have to stay in the game. You know, don't put the ball down and walk away. Stick with it, stay with it, and then just learn from all the different experiences, positive and negative, and just decide this. You know, if you're going to go into business, it'd be a good idea that you decide firmly that you're going to stay in business, that you're going to do whatever, whenever, however, to make that happen. And again, you may have to change your approach. You may have to change some of the things you do. You may even have to change the product or the service that you provide and make some adjustments. But again, stay in the game, and ultimately you're going to be successful. So some resources available to you so far as your next move. Again, PTAC is not the only organization in the game. There's so many resources available to you. I encourage you, go out there, look for them, find them, see who's out there. And 9 times out of 10, or even 10 times out of 10, that assistance is going to be free. You know, there's not going to be a charge. And I encourage you, look for those resources that are not going to go into your budget and take money away from you, but look for the resources that are actually going to help you be successful, and you have money to put in your budget. The Arkansas PTAC, again, Little Rock is the main office. We also have the satellite in Bentonville and Newport. Again, you see all the social media resources that are available to keep up with the PTAC. And again, that's my personal contact information. We'd be very, very happy to help you. But again, if you want to contact me, if you're not in my area, then I'll refer you to the appropriate counselor. So just want to say again, I know this was kind of a very quick overview. We'd be happy to answer any questions at this time, but also PTAC counselors are available if you have questions in the future, and we would be more than happy to work with you and help you be successful in the future.
Thanks so much, Tim. I do have one question that was sent to me. Do you have any programs that assist with minority-owned or veteran-owned businesses?
Okay, some of the things that you'll need to think about as you enter into the realm of being a vendor, whether it's local, state, or federal, you're actually going to see that there's different certifications, and those different certifications, they can be socioeconomic, they could be a minority certification, they could be a small business certification. You know, one of the ones that has been prominent that we've discussed, that we've trained on, and it's pretty extensive, is the woman-owned small business certification. So there are some things out there that as a minority or woman-owned business that are going to be helpful for you. You know, look at those things, see if it's something that you think would be of assistance to you, but we can help with those certifications to guide you through them. If you hit a roadblock or a detour, then most assuredly the PTAC can assist you in those cases also. But what we try to promise you is this: if we don't have the answer to what you want to do, then we're going to find someone who does have the answer for you.
That's all good. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Thanks to all of our presenters, and thanks to our participants. Before we go, I want to remind you that we have our last workshop of the webinar series coming up on Thursday, November 4th. This one is themed The Future of Broadband in Arkansas. And this has been a popular topic in recent conventions and seminars around the state, but it is a topic that is rapidly changing and has a lot of new news to share. We'll be bringing you the latest information available for Arkansas. But like all of our webinars, we also plan to offer some practical training and examples that you can put to use in your communities. So please sign up for this webinar on our landing page. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat for you all right now. So you have it. There you go. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you on November 4th.